Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, та вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, everybody. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 284 of the stream. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be reporting on the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. And some viewers yesterday told us about a buildup of Russian bombers in the southwestern area of the country, looking like they may be attempting to strike at Ukraine. And while yesterday we weren't able to corroborate that news on stream and I didn't have it available, today satellite pictures were available to the public that showed these bombers at an airbase right outside of the town of Saratov, which I'll show y'all right here. And it's quite the eclectic arsenal of somewhat old and somewhat new bombers. Now, this is actually a myriad of pictures right here. We can see some Ilyushin 76 transport aircraft right here on the tarmac. But most importantly, what we're seeing at the bottom is what a lot of people are concerned about. What we're seeing here is a mix of Tu-160 Blackjacks, Tu-95 Bears, and a smaller unidentified medium-range turboprop bomber that I have not been able to get a name for. But if you all know the name for it, share it in the live chat so that we can answer that real quick. Anyways, what we are seeing is that a large amount of Russia's strategic bomber fleet is being pulled from around the country and into the southwestern area of Ukraine. We do not know if this will be directly involved in the Ukraine war, although usually movement of equipment and supplies into the southwestern region of Russia usually means that it will attempt to be used in Ukraine. We're not entirely sure on these, because looking at this from a doctrinal or an actual practical standpoint, these aircraft are practically unusable, especially aircraft like the Tu-95. The Tu-95, while being a turboprop, and let's pull up some stats on it real quick so that way y'all can see what we're looking at here. So this is the Tu-95 Bear. This thing went into service in the Soviet Union in 1952. That's how old this aircraft is, yet the Russians still use a pretty extensive number of these. This is kind of like Russia's equivalent of the B-52 bomber. It's been around forever, and it's probably never going to go away. Not because it's good, but because the Russians can't afford to get anything new. But anyways, moving on from that, we can actually see that 500 of these have been built. We do not know how many are still in service with the Russian Air Force, which we'll see right here. There are 55 of these in service right now as we speak. And so, moving down here, we want to find the maximum altitude. Let's see, maximum speed. The service ceiling is around 45,000 feet. So this thing, at the highest it can fly, is flying at about the highest well, not even the highest altitude that commercial airliners fly at. So it will be flying pretty much like a commercial airliner at that altitude, and even slower at only about 440 miles per hour into Ukrainian airspace if it was used. Now, that seems like, it's like, oh, wow, that's actually pretty decent, I suppose. Maybe it would be usable in Ukraine. Maybe they would start carpet bombing towns. On top of that, looking at the armament, this thing can carry up to 33,000 pounds of bombs. It carries as many bombs as the B-21 Raider will. The problem is that would be completely forgetting that the Ukrainians do have surface-to-air missile systems that can fire up that far and hit it. For example, the S-300. Now, this is something that changed the whole entire world of strategic bombers like the Tu-95 into becoming obsolete overnight, because the S-300 system, once again designed by the Soviets, is such a decent system, at least compared to that kind of aircraft, that it could shoot it down from a pretty decent mileage away. So let's take a look at the specs of these missiles, or at least the general specs of a single missile, and let's see what it can do. So, scrolling through, trying to find ourselves some information here. And keep in mind, all of this kind of stuff is, I guess you could say, generally, I guess you could say guesswork. Nothing is ever exactly accurate. It could be a couple of miles longer, a couple of miles shorter. But you can see in the range of kilometers that a S-300 VM, and let's just say the Ukrainians are using an S-300 PM U-1, is anywhere in between 5 kilometers at shortest distance and 150 kilometers at its longest. Let's convert that 150 kilometers to miles. And the S-300 will be able to engage the Tu-95 93 miles away. That means, if we measure that out, and let's go to the map real quick. We'll go to our actual map to measure that out. Let's say they fly from Saratov and there's an S-300 battery near Kharkiv. It will be able to target that Tu-95 about that far away from the Ukrainian border and fire off probably enough missiles, or at least just one, to be able to take it down. These kinds of bombers, even if they do have countermeasures, they are largely ineffective just due to the size of the bomber, and they're fairly easy to shoot down. And so strategic bombers have practically been made obsolete. And so that is why it is concerning, to say the least, that they're building up a massive bombers, but at the same time, they probably won't even survive making it into Ukrainian airspace, because not only can the S-300 missile batteries that the Ukrainians have shoot them down, but the Ukrainian Air Force can also intercept these bombers and shoot them down as well, unless if the Russians dedicate pretty much the entirety of the remainder of their Air Force to try and, I guess you could say, screen or cover these bombers. It would still practically be impossible for these bombers to make it in and survive. But we're talking about the older one. We're not talking about the one that is on tonight's thumbnail, the Tu-160 Blackjack. The Blackjack is the NATO designation for the aircraft. And also, a lot of people always point out that the Tu-160 looks a lot like the American B-1 Lancer. And it does. Take a look at that plane, and I want to show you all this real quick because it's always funny to me. B-1 Lancer, right here. Let me find you all a picture of this one. Hopefully at the same angle. Yeah, right there. B-1 Lancer, Tu-160. Similarities? Many. Coincidence? Maybe not. The B-1 actually had a lot of delays in its production, well, I guess you could say in its developmental history, and so this thing was pretty much on the design table for about 15 to 10 years before the Tu-160 ever started to be designed, so it is possible that some Soviet spies, or I guess you could say, they're really just spies, somehow got some information on the B-1 Lancer and brought that back to the Soviet Union, and then the Soviet Union started their own development program to try and create the Tu-160. But that's not entirely true, and we don't know if that is provable or not, because a lot of the KGB's documents and paperwork would be destroyed during the collapse of the Soviet Union. But still, it's pretty bizarre to see that this thing is so similar in its appearance, and also fairly similar in its speed, its payload, and everything else. But moving on from that, let's...
Real quick, what was the name of that Russian bomber that was equivalent to the B-52?
The Tu-95 Bear, and I say that only in, I guess you could say, its service life. It's not comparable in any other way. The B-52 has 8 General Electric jet engines. The Tu-95 uses 4 turboprops, so it's not similar in any other way, rather than it's just kind of stuck around as the backbone of the strategic bomber force of the Russian Air Force, kind of like how the B-52 has done the same for the U.S. Air Force.
Yes, I just need to know that for the poll, by the way. And also, fun fact, that's actually a GTA Online plane, too.
Matthew's got to throw the interesting fact. But anyways, we can see right here a Tu-160. Again, also, it looks like it's flying over a cesspit of industrial waste down there, or something else. That looks horrendous. Anyways, let me scroll down here, and I'll show y'all what this thing can do. And in case if y'all don't know, you know, because I bet y'all are asking, well, what makes a Tu-160 special? Is it stealth? No. These, the B-1 Lancer and the Tu-160 are designed to be low-altitude bombers. These things sweep back their wings to travel at an incredibly fast speed at a higher altitude, and once they start to get in range of surface-to-air missile batteries, they slow the aircraft down, they swing the wings back out to where you see them here, and they pretty much fly as low as they can over the ground to their target, then they pull up and drop their payload. That's what these bombers are designed to do, and we can see right here that it is a pretty, it's a pretty big force to be reckoned with. You can see, according to the armament, it can carry 99,000 pounds of ordnance, an incredibly high amount. Not only that, but it can also travel at, let me see if we can get a Mach here, Mach 2.05. So, of course, at high altitude, it's incredibly fast, and it can also carry a large payload of weaponry, but at the same time, these things were designed for, I guess you could say, nuclear exchange in between the United States and the Soviet Union back when these things were made. So it's not really in concept for these things to possibly fly over an active battlefield to their target, because then you also have to throw in that while these things are flying incredibly low and probably close to the speed of sound, well, what about a man-pad? A man-pad may possibly be able to take one of these things out. And so even if it's able to avoid the S-300s, even if it's able to avoid detection by a Ukrainian air patrol, a simple man-pad on the ground operated by an infantryman may be able to take one of these things out. So all in all, strategic bombers are largely obsolescent, and that's why you'll see that a lot of countries don't really have them anymore, or they phase them out, and the few that do have them trying to use stealth bombers, like the United States with the B-2 Spirit. Or, you know, we still have B-52s. I don't know why, but we plan on using them at some point eventually, according to our doctrine, but I'm still not really seeing how. Anyways, while it's concerning, it doesn't really look like it'll be that much of an issue. The Ukrainians could probably deal with these bombers if the Russians start trying to, I guess you could say, conduct carpet bombing campaigns. These will probably be shot down fairly easily, and it will just incur even a further loss, an irreparable loss on the Russians, because they no longer produce Tu-95s. They haven't been produced for decades. They do produce Tu-160s, but due to the massive amounts of sanctions that have been imposed on the Russians, like everything else, they can't produce them. So they will be just losing even more expensive aircraft if they try and use these and really not gaining anything in return. And so that's the situation we're looking at right now. We'll try and keep up to date as best as we can in terms of picture and video evidence on what's happening at these Russian airfields. But while it's concerning, don't be too fearful. They will probably be able to defend against these if they are used. With that, it's now time for us to move on from this very interesting little tidbit of news, hoping the Russians do use them because they will once again be made into a joke. And it's now time for us to move from Saratov in Russia, the only bit of Russian news we have today, and it's time for us to move down to Bakhmut, because we've seen a decrease in news, but most importantly, on the deep state map, we are seeing some very interesting developments. Let me show y'all yesterday. This was yesterday, and this was today. The Russians have actually gained ground. Believe it or not, it's only about 100 feet of ground. We can see right here that they have somehow taken about another 50 feet of the chicken tender. Impressive by any means. The fact that they're even taking any of the chicken tender is honestly overwhelming. It looks like they're trying to hide along this one edge of the summit. Maybe there's a blind spot here where the Ukrainians can't fire from the ridgeline to the west onto them, but they have moved a whole whopping 50 feet. Impressive. They've also moved into a small line of houses here on the, I guess you could say, highway leading out of Bakhmut. It looks like they've taken 3 buildings, so ooh, very shocking. I bet the Russians will take Bakhmut within 8 hours now. These are the kinds of developments that the Russians just drool for. This is the kind of stuff that the Russians don't ever see anywhere on the front lines, and oh my god, it must mean so much. Getting past all my sarcasm, it doesn't really amount to much of anything. If we look at the casualty report today, the casualties were still incredibly high, and it looks like the Russians probably took these 3 buildings, probably with heavy casualties, considering that the Ukrainians are firing down at them from the chicken tender, and also the Russians hardly took any of the chicken tender. It's a negligible amount. It's not even worth noting. Further in the south, near the area of Kurtimivka and Andriivka, we can see that they made no advancements whatsoever today, and it looks like Deep State UA even has, I guess you could say, positive hopes that Ukrainian defensive forces have moved forward and closed the gap in between the no man's land, as you can see right there. And so they're keeping the Russians pinned down in Andriivka and Kurtimivka, and they're not moving an inch. They probably won't be able to beyond this point in that area without taking substantive casualties just trying to push up to the next ridgeline. Further up in the north, near Bakhmutske and Soledar, we can also see that no frontline developments have happened here either. The Ukrainians once again control the ridgeline to the north of the Gift of Salt, which is what Soledar means, and they're still firing down on Russians from that position, and so they have not been able to move. They've been completely pinned down. The same in Orlivka, considering that the Ukrainians are somewhere along the hill lines near Orlivka, and they're still firing down the Russians, and the Russians are completely trapped. So it's not really looking good for the Russians again. It looks like the battle is still faltering, and that may be why we're seeing the bombers pulled in. This may be not an attempt at an actual, I guess you could say, bombing campaign. It may be an attempt at trying to make the Ukrainians surrender through the fear of these bombing campaigns. But anyone with any common sense that knows about modern technology and what it's capable of would know that that's an idle threat. Those kinds of aircraft can be intercepted with ease or shot down, even if they have any kind of, I guess you could say, support or cover, considering that a MiG-29 or an Su-27 can target multiple aircraft at the same time. You could target the covering aircraft, the Su-27s or the Su-30s the Russians would have screening for those bombers, and the bomber at the same time, still get the bomber, and maybe lose 1 fighter aircraft in the process, and maybe even take out the Russian fighter aircraft as well. So it's not really a serious deal, but once again, the Russians have something behind this. This is a part of some kind of asinine, poorly thought out plan, and it's got to be something along the lines of trying to pressure the Ukrainians into a peace agreement right now. And if that is their plan, and that's how they're going to try and do it, hell no. That would make no sense for the Ukrainians to go into peace agreements with those kinds of obsolete and outdated strategies trying to be used against them. They'll be able to counter them within minutes. And so it's just odd looking. And also seeing how badly the Battle of Bakhmut is still going for the Russians. They will probably be falling along the Putler line very soon. They'll probably be pushed back to it within the next 2 months. And so with that, we're now going to move from the frontline analysis near the area of Bakhmut, and we're now going to move into the videos from Bakhmut, starting near Bakhmutske, where we saw the Wagner getting hammered. And this time they weren't getting hammered from drinking too much vodka, they were getting hammered by Ukrainian artillery. Let's check it out. I like the music. It reminds me of
Gotta love that technic, huh?
Oh, a round just hit right in the middle of that trench. Oof. You see one of them crawling. He's attempting to learn how to crawl. When you see another one further up the trench, it appears that he's lying down, taking a nap. When you see another guy, he's quit. He's walking off. He's clocked out, and he's leaving for the day. Right there. Hey, I like how casually he's walking. He's like, well, I'll see you around, David. I'm going to go home now to my wife and kids. I will see you. Meanwhile, the rest of the trench is in pretty bad shape. And that's the end of the video, but you can see once again, if anyone has a strong resentment for the Wagner group, which historically is a pretty decent bias to have, it looks like they're still getting wiped out pretty effectively. And I don't think they'll be a force to be reckoned with in the Solidar area for any time in the future. Every time we see them, it's always them on the receiving end of some kind of artillery barrage or missile strike. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of news behind Bakhmut, and we're also going to be revisiting something, because I actually saw Alfred Churchill say something that was actually a good point, so we'll be revisiting that in a second. But anyways, let's take a look at this sick picture from an artillery piece in the area of Bakhmut. Man, would you look at that? That is a sick picture.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Did that thing really create a blast that large? Or did they add like effects to it?
No, it's a blast that large. Like for a split second, like if the frame is just at the exact right time, it looks like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. It also it kind of gives you the idea of what real firepower is behind these artillery pieces, because it's always hard to get a scale of how, I guess you could say, powerful these things really are, because on the modern battlefield, this, I'm assuming it's a 152 millimeter Mista B, is heavily, I guess you could say, undergunned compared to some of the larger artillery pieces like a Peon, but these things still pack a massive punch. You can just see that by the charge that is needed to propel that shell miles down range, and you can see that right there. And it's just a cool picture all around, even getting past the technical side of things. It's just cool looking. I bet everyone can agree on that. And so with that, we're now going to be moving to the only other bit of news that we've gotten from the Bakhmut area, which is showing some Lithuanian-provided artillery firing. These things are M101 howitzers. And let me show you one of these. The M101s are a little old. These are so old that they were actually used in the Second World War and produced in between 1941 and 1953. So not exactly the newest artillery pieces out there, but it does have a legacy at least. Like hell, look at all the wars it's been used in. World War II, the Chinese Civil War, the Korean War, the First Indochina War, Vietnam, Cambodia, the Laotian Civil War, the insurgency in the Philippines, the Iran-Iraq War, the Lebanese Civil War, the Nicaraguan Revolution, the Salvadorian Civil War, the Yugoslav Wars, the Battle of Mari, and the Russo-Ukrainian War. So it's got quite a track record behind it.
And did you read that off a list, or did you just like recall that?
No, I just read that off a list. It's over here.
I was about to say.
You're about to be like, holy moly. But anyways, it just because it's old doesn't mean that it can't hit far. This thing can still hit at a range of 11.25 kilometers out. So it's not the farthest hitting and most up-to-date and accurate piece, but it does fill in some gaps that the Ukrainians may need. Every single weapon on the battlefield cannot be the knight in shining armor or the absolute monolith that a HIMARS or an M777 is, and it's just good to know that the Lithuanians are providing something so that way Ukrainian can fill some of the gaps they have in their artillery forces. Also, if I show y'all some more pictures of this thing, I think y'all may actually remember this, because there's one of these. Oh man, I think it was on Google Images. Let me go back here. Yeah, here it is. I believe this is the one. This one is actually used, if I'm correct, this picture was taken somewhere in Alaska, and it's used by the Alaskan Highway Patrol to fire at mountains so that way they can dislodge avalanches. So it's an incredibly bizarre, very American way of getting avalanches like done with. And I highly recommend y'all. Smithsonian made a short video on that. I highly recommend y'all pull it up because it's just bizarre to see highway patrolmen loading a M101 howitzer with an actual shell and firing it at the side of a mountain to create an avalanche. But anyways, we're going down a rabbit hole here that I will never return from if I keep going. And so it's time for us to see this piece being used by the Ukrainians. And so with that, here's the video. And I pray that there's no music. It doesn't sound like it.
Can't believe it. There's no music.
We see them loading the piece. We see them pulling the cord. And hopefully there's sound here. No sound! Dagnabbit!
Oh, man.
But we can see the recoil right there. And while it's an old gun, hopefully it's still hitting its mark and doing a decent amount of damage. And so with that, that's the end video. By the way, did y'all notice that the Enforcer is streaming? Check him out! Hit the like button! Anyways, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news in the southern area of Bakhmut. And it's neat to see that the Lithuanians have provided those artillery pieces. Not the best thing out there, but it's still helping out in its own way. And with that, that's all of the news we have from the Bakhmut area. We'll be going to the casualty report immediately after this, but we need to revisit the bomber discussion because Alfred Churchill, earlier on in stream, actually brought up a pretty good point. He said that strategic bombers don't necessarily have to fly to their targets anymore. They can launch cruise missiles from dozens of miles away, even hundreds of miles away, and not get in the range of Ukrainian surface-to-air missile batteries. And you, my sir, have actually brought up something that I didn't consider. So let's go back real quick to the Tu-160, and let's look at the weapons. Tu-160, blackjack, weapons. And let's see what kind of weapons it can carry. Let's see, including long-range nuclear missiles. The missiles are accommodated on multi-station launchers in each of the two weapon bays. Yeah, but we want to know a little bit more about the other kinds of weapons. No, we don't want cookies. No, thank you. I'm not a big fan of cookies, and if I am, it's white chip macadamia. I think after I screwed that up. Anyways, let's go down. Let's go down. So a Tu-160 could drop the father of all bombs, which is the biggest, I guess you could say, explosive in the world, bomb in the world. And we can see it launching a KH-101 cruise missile. These have been used a load against Ukraine, and maybe that's what they're going to be using it for. Knowing the range of the KH-101, that would be a little viable. If we go here, let me see if I can find y'all a range on this thing. The guidance system, maximum speed, flight altitude, operational range. Even some of the shorter distance ones can fire from 320 nautical miles out. And so it can fire from a far enough distance away that that Tu-160 would never be in the range of an S-300. And so now that you're bringing that up, that does add an extra layer to both the Tu-95s and the Tu-160s. They can carry a decent load of these cruise missiles from a pretty good distance away and fire off a pretty decent amount of them all at the same time, and that may be trying to help them to get off some of their last salvos of cruise missiles before they run out of them. And so I gotta thank you once again, Alfred Churchill. I actually saw that earlier, and you sounded a little bit miffed. This time I understand why, because I totally forgot that even the United States uses B-52s no longer like they did in Vietnam, just carpet bombing places. They use them to launch cruise missiles. So I totally forgot about that. Sorry about that, everyone. But that does add an extra layer and an extra threat to these kinds of bombers, because with that in mind, there is no defense that the Ukrainians have against that, rather than trying to shoot down the cruise missiles that are being launched from these bombers. But we already know that they can only shoot down about 60 to 70% of those. The other 40 to 30% will make it to their target and hit. And most of the time, they don't make it to their target. They hit some kind of residential area and kill dozens of people. And so that actually does add a lot of, I guess you could say, severity and threat to the situation, considering that there is no counter to the bombers being used with cruise missiles. If they try and use conventional weapons, conventional bombs and things like that, they can be shot down quite easily and intercepted fairly well. And so thank you so much once again for clarifying that, Alfred Churchill, and I hope we were able to cover that a little bit better than we were before. And with that, it's now time for us to move on from Bakhmut, because I'm talking about the Russians making very little ground and paying dearly for it. But let's go look at the casualty report to make sure that that's true. So, like, tree cut down. That's actually wrong. That's not the right one. Let me go over here to the skull and crossbones, which I marked these with symbols to remember what they are, and I still clicked on the wrong one. And we can see right here that the Russians have lost another 510 killed today, 3 armored personnel carriers, 8 supply trucks, 1 tank, 1 artillery piece, and 8 drones, and a helicopter. So it looks like the losses are still keeping up pretty high, and you've got to remember that they've lost 510 soldiers killed on a front line that's moving nowhere but here. This is the only spot on the entire front line where the front line has moved at all, and it cost them 510 soldiers killed and probably around 1,200 to 1,600 wounded to make an incredibly small gain. They're still not even close to getting into Bakhmut proper. And so with that in mind, it's pointless. They will lose this battle. They're not making enough ground in the proper directions to really make a difference. If they started moving down the highway towards Krasnoora, that may change things. If they started to actually push through near Andriivka and Kurtamivka or cross the canal and begin speeding their way down towards Chasiv Yar, they might be able to actually encircle Bakhmut. But then again, they're only making about 50 feet of ground a day. It would take them... Actually, let's measure that out. How long would that take them? So we want to measure all the way to Chasiv Yar. As the crow flies, that's 14.28 kilometers. And so if we go here, and this little area right here, it's about 271 meters. So I'm sorry, it's about the length of let me think. It's about the length of 3 football fields they've advanced on the front line for 520 dead. So 270 divided by 14,000, I believe, if I'm correct. Let me go back and measure that one more time just to make sure I'm correct. So from right here to right there, that's 14 kilometers. So 14,000 divided by 270. It would take them 52 days to get all the way from Kurtamivka to Chasiv Yar if they kept up that kind of momentum that they have on the chicken tender right now. And if they're losing 550 soldiers killed on average per day, that means that they would have lost another 28,518 soldiers just trying to take Bakhmut alone. And that's not even fighting within Bakhmut itself, that's just trying to move past Bakhmut and around it towards Chasiv Yar and also Krasnoora. And so you can get the idea that this battle is completely unwinnable right now. Even if they did continue to move about 3 football fields forward per day, there's just too much ground they'd have to cover to win. And by that point, they've taken so many casualties that the Russian army has collapsed, and they're now back at the defensive lines that they've set up somewhere in between Bakhmut and Popasna, trying to fight for their lives to hold the ground that they've been losing ever since the first day of the war. And so it's totally a loss. I can't believe there's people out there who really believe that the Battle of Bakhmut is a pitched battle. Because when you really look at the numbers like that and you break down the math, they're going to take so many losses and killed alone. And, you know, if it's 28,000 killed, that means that there's around 60,000 wounded as well. So they'll lose about 100,000 soldiers total in casualties trying to take Bakhmut. You know, and then you have to consider that there's about 550 extra supply trucks that'll be needed per day to evacuate all the wounded and bring in reinforcements, and then they have to supply the entire thing, and they're running out of ammunition because that would be just fighting like hell for 58 days straight, and all the BTGs can't do that. There's really no air support. There's hardly any support to stop the units getting hit by artillery because the Russian artillery doesn't have the range to hit Ukrainian artillery. It's all just a complete wash for them. They may as well just give up and start drawing back to the defensive lines that they've made, because beyond that, they're just going to consistently be losing forces and not gaining anything at all at this rate. And they're even gaining in the wrong direction. These two little prongs are moving into Bakhmut itself. That's just stupid. That is the minimal amount of brain cells needed to pull that move right there. You could actually move towards Krasnoora and Chasiv Yar and probably deal with less Ukrainian resistance because it's largely open ground. It's not an urban city where they can fire down at you from ridges and inside the town. And you could probably actually threaten them with encirclement where they'd retreat. But no, the typical Russian commander does not think in logic or any kind of medium like that. They just think of pushing these guys straight into the town, taking tens of thousands of casualties, actually 100,000 casualties, several dozen thousand killed for really nothing. Because even then, they have to push miles beyond Bakhmut to actually make it a worthy supply depot. Because if it's right on the front line, it can't be used as a supply depot. It's just a useless town, like it is for the Ukrainians right now. The town of Bakhmut holds no strategic importance for the Ukrainians. The only reason the Ukrainians are defending the town It's because if they lose it and then they get pushed miles back behind Bakhmut, then it has strategic importance for the Russians, and that's why they're defending it. So it's just stupid. I don't know if anyone else sees it. Do you see it, Matthew?
I think it's pretty stupid.
I think it's just stupid. They ought to just give up right now. And honestly, I think I gotta be honest with y'all. I think Russia ought to go into peace agreements right now and just cut their losses and give everything back to Ukraine. Because if they keep up battles like this for one town, and look how minuscule that battlefront is right here, all the way from Kurtimivka all the way up to Soledar here. Keep that in, actually, let's put a little ruler marker on that right here. This is hang on. Oh, come on. Work with me. There we go. That is the length of the entire front line. It's 25 kilometers wide. You zoom out, and they're taking 510 killed a day, 1,200 wounded, on a battlefront that you can't even see when you zoom out to the entirety of the front lines in Ukraine. It's just pointless. They are lost. It's lost. They ought to just give up. It's just infuriating to see that they're keeping up a pointless war at this point, that they can't even win on a small scale in Bakhmut.
If Putin cared about his soldiers, he wouldn't keep pushing. But, of course, they've dug themselves a hole, and like the Russians always do, they keep digging it even deeper.
And that's true. They just keep on digging even further and further. It's just unbelievable. Anyways, it's time for us to move on from the casualty report, which you can see here again. Russian bots may read it and weep. And also, I hope that someone out there in Russia actually looks at this kind of stuff with some common sense and goes, this is not going well for us. Maybe someone ought to start moving us in the direction of peace talks and trying to get us out of this war, because it's not going to end well for us at all. We're just going to end up losing everything and gaining nothing, even if we try. And so with that, we're now going to be closing that out, and we're now going to be moving on from that to something interesting that happened on the Discord. Some of y'all may know that we have a moderator called Psyops, who is an absolute funny guy, and also he's a really cool guy to talk to. And he has actually spearheaded once again another contest on our Discord to create a Christmas image for the Enforcer channel. And we have a winner.
What?
We have a winner. Here is the Christmas image that they've made. It's two Enforcers. It looks really cool, actually.
I even have a "Hello, my name is Matt" sticker on my uniform.
Yeah, like it's actually pretty good. Like, you've got like antlers. I got a little Santa hat. Like the gas mask, like lenses. I like this. I think it looks pretty good. And if
And also credit to Dot Miles for creating that as well.
And huge credit to Dot Miles for creating it. It's actually really good. And thank you to everyone who participated in that little Discord contest. I hope y'all have fun with it. And we got a pretty cool result. We have actually been thinking about trying to make part of it, probably just the faces because of how it's formatted, into the YouTube banner closer to Christmas time, in between the 20th and the 25th, because I thought that would be pretty cool. And so congratulations for doing this. It's just cool looking. And so with that, it's time for us to move on from this little neat Discord contest. And thank you to everyone who participated in it again. The results were really interesting. This one was, of course, the winner, and it was really cool at that. And so with that, it's time for us to move on from the Christmas image. And it's now time for us to move on into the next bit of location unknown news, starting off with a grad firing in slow motion, which looks pretty impressive. But before we get to that, Matthew's actually thrown up a poll about the Russians and if they will be gaining any ground near Bakhmut. And it looks like the results are actually pretty balanced in between all three options. So real quick, Matthew, can you run us through that poll?
All right. And yes, I have thrown up a poll. And the question says, do you think the Russians are going to gain more ground near Bakhmut soon? It looks like 41% said no, they will not gain more. 29% said not sure. And 30% said yes, they will gain more. So for me, I think they will gain more, but they'll gain maybe an inch, but nothing major. So I would say 30% yes. But unfortunately, what say you?
I would say that they would gain, I think they will gain a little more, just a small amount more. I can see some things happening, like maybe, if we go back to the deep state map, maybe they'll take half the chicken tender. Maybe, well, let me actually update the map. Maybe they'll take half of the chicken tender. Maybe they'll probably get on the bottom of the summit down here in the south of the chicken tender. But that's about it. Because they're pinned down completely down here. If they move forward, they'll be taking some pretty decent casualties. And they're already taking decent casualties just in Kurtimivka and Andriivka. And also up here in Bakhmut and Soledar, we've never seen them move at all during this entire battle, if I'm correct. So let me actually see if I'm correct and back up through all time. 28th, 27th, 26th, 24th, 22nd, 21st, 20th, 19th, 17th, the 16th, the 15th, 14th, 13th, 12th, 11th, 10th. Oh, it only goes back. Wait, hang on. It does go back further. All right, so we're now at November 9th, which was almost a month ago. And this is what the battlefield looked like then. And so let's skip. Well, actually, let's play it. Let's just see how the front lines have been developing so far in the battle. Look at all this change. There's so many, thousands of Russian soldiers have lived and died on these front lines, and there's hardly any change to the point that you can't even see it. Oh, we just had something move up near Berestove, but that was only for 1 day, or 1 hour of 1 day. And look, they moved forward south of Bakhmut. Oh my god. It's now the 20th. Oh, they moved forward on the highway near Bakhmut. Oh my god, they're really... Oh, man. Now they're at Drivka. They're making a lot of progress. I'm really scared. And it's cost them thousands. You know, we just sat here and watched the entire front line over the course of a month. It's cost them thousands to get nothing. Just hundreds of yards of ground in some places, and it's cost them thousands of soldiers. So I don't think they'll be making much more ground. They'll probably make a little, but it's not going to be anything noteworthy that will change the course of the war back into Russia's favor. The Ukrainians still hold the initiative, and they'll be able to push them out once the Russians lose their steam. And so with that, I hope that addresses the poll, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and that very first poll said, do you think the Russian Tu-95 is equivalent to the American B-52 bomber? It looks like 56%, which is the majority, said no, the Russian one is garbage, and that's a big shocker. 2% said the American one is garbage, 2% bots. But anyways, also 19% said not sure, and 24% said yes, it is an old equivalent. Now for me, I've got to say, I'm not sure. Looking at the two, I guess you could kind of say they're an old equivalent, but I got to go with not sure. So, Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the Tu-95 is completely inept and obsolete compared to the B-52. I want to show you something interesting, Matthew, about the Tu-95. I don't know if this will be something interesting of note to you, but to show you how old the Tu-95 is, if I can get a picture of its tail section, it still has a... Well, wait a minute, that's from a video game. 1 second, I need to find an actual picture. It still has a tail gunner. That's how old the plane is that when this thing was designed, it was thought that that this thing would actually have a moment of time to fire back at an enemy plane coming down on it from the tail. That's how obsolete it is. The B-52 has the same, believe it or not, which is actually pretty crazy to see. But modern, well, upgraded B-52s, the modern B-52s that are still in the U.S. arsenal, we've actually capped that off. There is no tail gunner anymore on our B-52s, but you can see where one would have been. And if you see very old B-52s, there actually was one there. But we've removed that. The B-52 is still incredibly old, though. Still, like, if I compare the stats of the B-52 to the Tu-95, it is a way better aircraft. Let me scroll down here.
Did the Russian version have like a better solution for the tail gunner not breathing in all that lead?
Not really. I don't think so. Also, there's the tail gunner section of the B-52. You can see that it looks like there were 4, if I'm correct, 50 caliber machine guns with the air cooling flutes around them. Really weird looking configuration, even for, I guess you could say, the 50s. It was really weird. Anyways, let me move on down. Also, you see a whole bunch of them at a graveyard in the middle of the desert, because we got rid of like hundreds of these things. So let me keep on scrolling. Scrolling. And here we go. All right. So armament. This thing can carry 70,000 pounds of bombas. And so let's see how many the Tu-95 can carry. The Tu-95 can carry 33,000 pounds of bombs. The B-52 carries almost twice that in terms of bomb load. It can also travel at a little bit of a faster speed. The B-52 has a cruising speed of 509 miles per hour. The Tu-95 has a cruising speed of 440 miles per hour. Also, the maximum service ceiling of the Tu-95 is 45,000 feet. The B-52, if I'm correct, would be a little bit higher than that, 50,000 feet. And so in all regards, the B-52 outperforms just by a little bit. And it is better. It is cheaper to use because these turboprops on the Tu-95, if I remember my Soviet history correctly, are unbelievably expensive to maintain because they were overcomplicated and Soviet designed, which makes everything a whole lot worse. And so with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well. And I would hate to be the sucker that has to, like, operate this thing because these things are just terrible. Not the worst thing that the Soviets have designed, actually. And that would actually go to the Tu-16, if I remember correctly. Let me see if this is the one. No, that's not it. Tu-22, maybe. Yes, it's this one. This one was so backwards and poorly designed. Let me see if I... This is the original Tu-22. This thing sucks.
It has 2 engines on the tail. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, and you know something else interesting about this thing? At the time this thing was designed, the Soviets really didn't know all too well how air conditioners worked. They were a little bit behind the time in that
They
technology.
still don't.
and so what they did to make a working air conditioner is that they had a vodka solution made that would help to cool the air inside the aircraft. And so once this thing stopped flying, the crew members of this aircraft would clamber down to the ground crew. They would siphon out all of the alcohol inside of the air conditioner, or the quote-unquote air conditioning system, and they would use it to fund their kids' tuition to go to college because vodka was an informal form of currency during Soviet times.
I thought you were about to say they drank it or something.
Oh, no.
That's a twist. They paid for tuition with the vodka money.
In the Soviet Union, it was commonly said by people who lived during the time. It's not commonly documented because it would be an embarrassment to the Soviets. But they pretty much used vodka as an informal currency, and so like this guy would be like, "I want my son to go to college," and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, you want what money?" You give him like 40 gallons of vodka, and he's like, "Okay, he's in." That's like what they would do. Soviet Union was insane, and I honestly
I
think
see everybody saying it's called the supersonic booze carrier, the booze cruiser.
Yeah, the booze cruiser, that's what it was called. That has different connotations in the modern United States. Watch out for booze cruisers now. But yeah, that's pretty much what this thing was. Pilots who, guys in the Soviet Union would want to fly this thing because vodka was literally money. Every time you flew it, you made money because that stuff would be siphoned out at the end of the flight and you could just keep it. Also, the other thing that's very interesting about that is that while it had high risk, it also had high reward. This thing was known to oftenly just break up mid-flight, just shear itself apart, and no one would survive.
Dang.
Yeah, so that's the Soviet Union. You can also see one sitting
That figures.
This one actually looks like the Russian Air Force circa 2022. That looks like a good representation. But anyways, we're going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. I would say that is one of the worst designed Soviet bombers in their history, but that's just scratching the surface of the terrible things they've designed throughout all time. So with that, we're now going to be moving on to the next poll.
All right, and that was our last poll. We only had 2 for the first segment, but many more are to come. But moving on to our super chats. Up first, we have a very generous $40 donation from a longtime channel legend, Colleen Emsley, who says, "Sorry, I've been away hunting up in Calling Lake, Alberta. Freezer full of deer and grouse, which tastes like chicken, but better. No service up in the bush. And thanks you, and looking forward to good news for Ukraine." And also, Colleen, It's really funny to me how when anybody describes what anything tastes like, they always say it tastes like chicken.
I think chicken is I think people are spoiled these days, man, because chicken is like the meat. Like everything tastes like chicken. Nothing tastes like anything else. It's all chicken in the end. So why in the world not just eat chicken? But anyways,
yeah, it's just like everything tastes like chicken.
But anyways, getting to Colleen's super chat, and thank you so much for the support. Somehow, Matthew, I don't know if you noticed this, but I actually lasered right in on Calling Lake from memory. Like, I was all the way in Ukraine. I literally did this, Matthew. I was like in Ukraine. I zoomed out. I went all the way over here, and I was like, zoom and enhance. Zoom and enhance. And then zoom and enhance. Yeah, it's right on Calling Lake. I don't know how I remembered where exactly it was, but I thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope you had a fun time hunting. BC Skyman is also, I guess you could say, one of the channel hunters. Like, I think it's you and him right now that are like the hunters of our channel. I hope y'all are having a lot of fun doing that. I've never gone hunting myself to know whether it's fun or not, but it sounds like a lot of people who do it really get into it, so I'm guessing it would have to be fun. But with that, thank you so much for the support. It's totally fine that you haven't been around. It's always good to take a break and go do some fun stuff every once in a while, excuse me. And so it's good to hear that you did go hunting, had some fun, and now you're back watching the stream. And I welcome you back. Also, are these natural gas wells? It's blurred out.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah, I think these are natural gas wells. It's not that weird because we have those right outside of Birmingham, if you've never noticed. Like if we scroll down
No, I was just saying it's weird. It's blurred out.
Yeah, it is kind of weird because when you zoom in on the Alabama ones, if I can find them. Oh, these have all been taken up. They just took up the pumps and then they moved on, but they left it there. Let me see. I think I can find one right here. Yeah. Like, these aren't blurred out. You can see them clearly, but for some reason up near Calling Lake, they blurred them out. I don't know why. But anyways, with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have the return of another channel legend, Compound David, who puts in a $28 donation. And that was a lot of hype. But anyways, Compound David says, Saturday night PPP fund, pepperoni pineapple pizza. Please take a question from the chat.
And I thank you so much for the support, Compound David. And Matthew has learned his lesson. He didn't sit there and go PP fund this time. He said PPP fund.
Oh, why did you bring that back up?
I had to, Matthew. We have to live off of our embarrassments. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Compound David, and welcome back. It feels like it's been a while since we've seen you. And so with that, we will make sure to get a live chat. And thank you so much once again for the support and being here tonight. That's really cool to see that you're back. And so with that, it sounds like a lot of our channel legends are returning tonight. I wonder if we're going to see a whole load of channel legends popping back on tonight, although we haven't seen them for a while. And so with that, let's get to a live chat.
All right, and the live chat goes to Linda Vickers, who says, I heard that Iran is sending Russia more cruise missiles. Is that true?
I don't know. From what I've heard, I believe it was the Ukrainian Secretary of the Interior or the Ukrainian Minister of Defense a while ago said that the Iranians were not sending any more weapons to the Russians according to their intelligence. But I don't know if that's true now. I believe that statement came out about 4 days ago, and a lot can change in 4 days, but I haven't gotten any verifiable news to show that the Iranians are sending anything new to Russia, and it also looks like Russia has run out of Shahed 136s, as we no longer get any video or picture evidence of them being used, and we also hear no more mention of the Shahed 136s, which show that the Iranians gave them an Amazon Prime shipment of those things, the Russians used them all up, and then beyond that, that was it. They have no more of them and they can't be used. And so with that, I hope that addresses that question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. If I do find any other information though, I'll make sure to throw it on stream tomorrow. But at the moment, I don't think they're sending anything as of right now. I'm sure, Matthew, there'll be someone out there. He's wrong. You know, if you know what I'm talking.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyways, with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. Matthew, honestly, I'm getting a kick out of thinking about that. But anyways, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment to the best of our knowledge right now. And with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. And we will be moving on now from the question segment. And we're now going to be moving back into the location.
I thought we had one more.
Did we? I thought we already answered 3.
We've only answered 2.
What? Okay, let's get to the third one.
All right. And also, Jose Ruano, I saw you send in that super sticker, and I know YouTube's giving you some trouble, so tag me in the live chat and send your message, and I'll add it to the spreadsheet. But thank you very much for that support.
And also, you are amazing, Jose. I see this.
Yes.
I see the sticker.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Mark Sova, another channel legend, who says, take a question from the chat.
And 1 second, let me put one thing in timeout real quick. And we will make sure to take a question from the chat. Thank you so much once again for the support and allowing this channel to keep on running. We rely on viewer support. And also, by the way, I was just wondering, have any of y'all seen the Chinese video that was put out on this channel today? I believe I told you all, if I'm correct, that if the video got 4,000 likes, we would make a continuation of that video where I talk about the Chinese Civil War. And if y'all would be interested in that, make sure to get it up to 4,000 likes. Make sure to watch it as well, because I put my heart and soul into that thing. And so hopefully y'all do enjoy it. And also, let me see here. Let me see. It's gotten 3,391 likes right now, so it's only about 600 away. And if it gets 4,000 likes, hell yeah, I'll make sure to make a video on that probably tomorrow, because I don't think I have anything incredibly impressing to do tomorrow. But also, it was great fun to make that one. And I do have to say this, though. Some critiques of mine, improvements in the future that y'all may want to hear about, just in case y'all thought it was lacking in some areas. Yeah, graphically, it wasn't really that good, because I just looked at Google Maps and I talked the entire time. In the future, the plan will be to do that again, but to maybe include some video of my face, because I actually got to look at Matthew's setup that he's working on in the background right now with an actual camera, and that was fly. To say,
Oh, yes, it is.
it was
It's tremendous. And also thanks to the Amazon employee the other night who apparently pulled some strings because literally everything arrived today.
Yeah, I mean, like, that was crazy. Everything shipped at the same time last night on stream, and everything got here today too. It was insane. So if you were the one who did that, thank you so much. It's also good to know that we have people high up in Amazon who apparently can just get that stuff done, if that is the case. But moving on from that, the Chinese Civil War is something that I've read a pretty good amount of and know a pretty decent deal of. Also, one thing funny, I got to share this with y'all. I thought this was hilarious. Let me see if I can find it. The comment. Also, a lot of y'all have been commenting on that video, like loads of y'all, and I thank y'all so much. But let me scroll down. I'm trying to find the one I didn't heart because it was super critical. Okay, so here's something interesting. Let me actually show this on my screen, on y'all's screen actually, because this is just funny. First, you seem to be deliberately misrepresenting the current Chinese government lockdown riots, with the Chinese housing crisis representing 25% of the Chinese economy, affecting investors in China and overseas, but not rioting. Well, I hate to differ with you, but when the housing crisis in China happened, there were videos of tanks rolling down the streets and people protesting as they expected the government to do something about that, so that's not true. Similarly, you seem to have deliberately misstated the current president's recent comments about Russia and Ukraine and have not followed up with any clarification, and I don't think we've ever done that. You have an agenda concerning Putin's terms for peace talks, nuclear threats, Ukraine and USA-NATO solidarity, but he doesn't go into any explanation of what that is. You're pushing Ukraine giving up land to Russia. We are not. Lest you were vaporized in World War III, etc. We are not. That was taken totally out of context. You are deliberately undermining Ukraine and also misrepresenting the recent riots in China. And let's place some bets. Let's hedge some bets, everyone, because this is about to be hilarious. How would y'all like to bet that this account was made probably within the last 3 months? How much money are you willing to put on that, Matthew?
I'll put a good bit on it.
Well, let's click his account and let's see. Let's see. It doesn't have any content.
His name is just Rob.
Yeah, it doesn't have any
it.
playlists. It has a random user ad. And about a couple of months ago in September, look at that. We found ourselves a China bot.
Rob.
We've been,
and you got to choose a better name than that, Rob. You
Yeah,
can't just choose one American name like that.
Yeah,
We're going to tell who you are.
That's just a generic name. And also, you can always tell the bots because usually people who've been on YouTube have been on there for years. It's very interesting to see he's joined in September. And now he's coming over here. He hasn't even been around long enough to really know anything about this channel. The channel's existed almost 3 times as long as his account has. And yet he's here. So now we've gone from Russia bots to China bots. Yeah, I mean, we're starting to piss everyone off around the world. I hope that we have some kind of spies trying to come and get us sometime around, because that would just be fun. You know, it would just be fun. Anyways, getting past all the joking, I thought that was hilarious, but a load of y'all are leaving a whole bunch of positive comments, like "Well done, Enforcer" from Mark Redacted, who's been around forever. This was great, and thank you so much. And Svetlana, who said it was a great video, and I thank you. And then Rob Bertram, who actually liked the Sam Elliott video. That's not the China one. But I got to thank you all so much once again for the support y'all been giving to that video. It did a lot better than other videos I've run so far. I believe it may have been able to overcome our shadow ban just by a small amount. And still, one other thing that's interesting that we looked at today is that our subscriber reports are being skewed. We're actually still gaining around 30 to 40 subscribers a day on average right now, even up to 60 and 70, but for some reason YouTube is not counting any of them, although they're showing them on our detailed subscriber count dashboard, but they're not showing any of them. And at the end of the day, sometimes we're coming out negative, although we're getting like 60 subscribers according to the YouTube dashboard, which is kind of weird. So we're dealing with a lot of weird stuff in the background, on top of other things that we're not going to mention unless if they get really south. But with that, it's now time for us to move on from that comment. And I thank you so much once again for the support. Wait, can you reread it off again real quick just to make sure we didn't miss anything on it?
Yes. The question, it was actually a $20 super chat by Mark Sova. He said, take a question from the chat, and the question had gone to Linda Vickers, who talked about Iran sending more cruise missiles.
Oh yeah, and we did answer that. So I hope we answered that fairly well. And now it's time for us to hop right out of the question segment and on into the location unknowns, which shows a slow motion of a Ukrainian MLRS firing. And that didn't really look slow motion on the first rocket, but the next one was. Actually, it was right there. And there it goes. And the next one will fire off right here in a second. Come on, number 2. There we go. It's ignited. There it goes out the tube. That looks crazy when you see it in slow motion. And with that, that's the end of the video. But there was a quick little glimpse, a slow motion picture of a grad firing off its rockets. And pretty neat to see. Also, what were you laughing at, Matthew?
I don't want to say it on the stream because apparently it's like a bad thing if you say it. YouTube doesn't like it. But, you know, there's a rapper out there called 50 Cent, right?
Yeah. Hopefully this isn't going anywhere where we get canned or anything, but yeah.
So, you know, what if he had like an army? I'm trying to say it without saying the other version in over there in China.
Oh, 少爽好中国，征暖往往冰激凌，冰激凌。
Apparently that's like a big no-no on YouTube.
Well, what, doing that?
Saying, you know, the term without any like references to rappers or anything like that.
Well,
if you know what I mean.
Oh, well, you know, all I have to say about that, Matthew, is, 我很喜欢冰淇淋. So with that, I actually, while you're saying that, Matthew, because I was knowing where you were going with that, I was actually pulling up how to pronounce that properly in Chinese. So if there's anyone in here who can actually speak Chinese, hopefully that wasn't butchering it too badly, but it was supposed to say something like, I like ice cream. So,
that's true. And you can find him in the club, by the way.
What? What's that mean?
Oh, it unfortunately doesn't know the song, apparently. But anyways, everybody else will get it.
Anyways, with that, we're on to the next one, where we can see a Ukrainian MiG-29 flying over the snowy landscape. And someone actually knocked me fairly last night in the comment section. I read it. Because I do read comments in the comment section. I don't heart them all, and I can't respond to them all, but I do read them. Someone was like, man, you talked about the video not having any music on it, and then you just talked over it where we couldn't hear the sounds. So I'm not going to talk over this one, because honestly, that's the whole point of them not having music. So here's the video. I don't even think this video has any sound at all, actually. There's no sound whatsoever.
It's really peaceful, though, at least.
Yeah, and also it's beautiful down there. Like, you know, I can just hear that guy singing that song. You know, like, what is it? The dun 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 dun, and the fire is so delightful. I think you may have some behind the scenes remembrance.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire?
No, it's the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so... You know that one because we saw that video, you know, that was about to be showed on stream, but then it wasn't.
I think so.
Yeah, that was the special edition, behind the scenes and Forster special. But anyways, it doesn't have any audio. I was hoping it would have audio for y'all to hear, but it doesn't have none. Also, they blurred this guy's phone out so that way y'all wouldn't know where he was, which is pretty smart. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we saw... It, by the way, real quick, is Super Bunker 9000 in the house? Is he? I know
Let's see. No, he's not here tonight. I just checked.
Oh, man! That sucks, because NAFO trucks just arrived on the front lines!
Real? Oh,
yes!
Look at that. The sniffing brigade.
It makes me want to sniff. Also, look at the camo pattern. Like, you know how they have, like, the camo blots? They're all little Super Bunker dogs.
That is... admirable, I gotta say.
I gotta respect the grind here. NAFO is delivering. Look at, I gotta say, that's cool. Huge respect to NAFO for doing this. Someone's gotta go get someone's gotta get Super Bunker 9000 on right now. Like, he is our NAFO representative in house. And they've got all of these trucks. All of them have the exact same camo pattern and everything. I'm getting so excited I can hardly talk. I wish he was here tonight because I would love to show him that NAFO has delivered actual vehicles to the Ukrainian military. And they did a really good job painting them too. But with that, that's the end of the video. And it's super cool to see that NAFO is actually helping out in its own way to help the Ukrainian forces. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of Location Unknown News. Really cool Location Unknown News. And, you know, there's going to be someone out there, Matthew. Actually, that's wrong. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And we're going to be going on a little trip. Actually, Ukrainians are going on a little trip. All kitted out in winter camo. Look at, now that's a cool look, actually. Looks like something
That
for
really
the
is.
Finnish
I like
winter.
that.
And we can even see some Mi-17s landing in the fields in front of them, getting ready to take them off to a really cool place to do really cool Ukrainian business. Looks like a movie scene. I wish these guys the best of luck. They're all kitted out. They've got good kits. I mean, like, none of them are lacking at all in the I guess you could say infantry equipment department. They're about to be airlifted out to wherever they're going. They're probably going to do a pretty well job at it because Ukrainian soldiers are the best military in Ukraine. The Russians, of course, are the second best inside Ukraine. And so I bet these guys are going to be doing some incredible work wherever they're heading on the front lines. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of Location Unknown News, where we can see the horror. And y'all just got to listen to this story. This is one of the craziest stories I've ever heard the Russians try and propagate. So just remember, this is Russian propaganda. The reason why we're showing Russian propaganda right now, and we usually don't, is because this story is so harebrained and insane. It's laughable. It's hilarious. It's comedy on another level. And so here's the video. You see them clearing an empty town.
Находили танки, боевые бронемашины.
And they found Ukrainian vehicles, all kinds of vehicles, with welded hatches.
БМП, там, БТРы. Люки заварены, что сверху, что снизу.
Both at the bottom and the top? Why would they do that? So everything was done so that the crew couldn't leave the vehicle? What the hell is this? The crew of the damned or something? You get inside the tank. We'll weld you in. No, I don't want to be welded. Shut your mouth. You know, and they just weld them in or something. Like, the crew would accept that. Like, if you welded me inside of a tank filled with 120mm high explosive rounds, I would never leave camp. I would just spin that thing around and blow away the commander who ordered for the hatches to be welded shut. This is the stupidest story I've ever heard. This is brand new levels of BS and just bullcrap.
I'm not understanding. Are they saying that the Ukrainians welded their own people in the tank?
Yeah, so that way they would stay in there until they died. They wouldn't have a chance to bail out of the tank.
And what would be the point?
I have no idea. It makes no sense. The story just makes no sense whatsoever. And they're trying to sell this to us. Come on! Like, this is just laughable at this point.
Все для того, чтобы экипаж не мог покинуть машину. Ну, сказать то, что они...
They forcibly made soldiers out of them. These guys are probably saying that while they were just conscripted 4 days ago and they're already near the front line somewhere. Oh my god.
Сделали смертников, можно сказать. Ну, они тоже люди.
That's true. I can't deny that's not false.
Многие экипажи танков, вот, встречал и фотографии, и сам такую видел картину. Танк отворачивает башню назад, проезжает к нашим на позицию медленно и останавливается. Глушит двигатель.
It's very interesting how this guy says he's seen the pictures and videos of it, but they're not clipping it into this video while he's describing it. Because you would think that this would be a massive propaganda coup if that was happening all along the front lines. The Russians would be filming this crap. They'd be going, look, the Ukrainians have been welded inside their tanks. They're suffering. But we never seen a video like that because it's not happening. It's bullcrap. Also, that guy's got coke.
And also, the guy talking looks like he's reading off a script too.
Yeah. Oh, and look, now the story is even getting more descriptive to the point it's just insane. All of them do the exact same, Matthew. All of these hundreds of Ukrainian tanks that this has happened to, the thousands of them, they turn their turret around, they drive up to a Russian position, somehow don't get blown away before they even get there, considering that there's no white flag on it, and then they start tapping on their hatches the SOS, ... ... over and over and over. Like, what the hell? This is the most overly complicated, stupid story.
Наши техники их вытаскивают оттуда.
То есть они не ведут боевые действия против вас, танкисты?
Не, есть танкисты, которые прям яро ведут.
Заваренные?
Не, заваренные по большей степени нет. Они понимают, что это, ну, смерть.
So why in the world does welding the hatches shut make them realize that it's death to fight the Russians? I mean, like, doesn't the tank kill Russians all the same, whether the hatches are welded or not? You know, like, doesn't really make a lot of sense. The whole story doesn't make any sense from a logical standpoint. Like, if you drive a tank without a flag of surrender above it, straight towards an enemy position, I'm pretty sure they're not going to wait for you to get there. You know, and I'm pretty sure that they are not going to notice that the turret is turned around from hundreds of yards away, not facing them. And I also don't think that they're going to be hearing the taps of SOS on the hatch of the tank, considering that that means they would have to be on top of it, and the engine would also have to be off, probably for them to hear that. This is all just silliness, goofiness of the maximum degree. Never heard anything like this before, and this poor cat has to sit by and listen to all of this with his poor little ears. I hope that thing doesn't develop any kind of cancer from hearing such a ridiculous story. With that, we're now going to be moving on.
Meal.
Say what?
I said that's a meal.
That's the happy meal, a tasty period happy meal right there. Oh, to go. And so with that, we're going to be moving on to the next clip, the last clip of Location Unknown News, where we can see that the Russians have been doing some, I guess you could say, some stand clearing in the forests of Ukraine, like they always have. They hate trees, and you can see this right here on film. You hear the round come in, explode, and when they lift the camera back up, you see a tree going down. They hit a tree. They didn't hit a single Ukrainian soldier, but they took out another tree.
Идите нахуй, блядь, дебилы.
Дайте хоть кофе попить, ебать.
Пиздец, ебать.
You now see them drinking coffee and also going, eh. And with that, that's the end of the video. And it looks like the Russians are trying to get into the lumber business, but sadly, they don't know that the Ukrainians are in the scrap business. And those two things don't go together. With that, that's the end of the video. Once again, pretty nice to see the Ukrainian soldiers didn't get the short end of the stick and it was a tree that got it. It seems like the Russians are actually fighting a war against the fascist trees and not really against the Ukrainians. And so with that, we're now going to be moving towards the Belgrade area before we move on down to the northeastern front, which has had a decent amount of news today, where we can actually see that some kind of incendiaries or star shells were being used inside Russia by Ukraine. The caption here says incendiary munitions being used in the Belgrade Oblast. It's not in Belgrade City, it's in the Oblast. But below this, the publisher of this little post actually said that these may be star shells. But considering that this looks a lot like incendiary, I'm kind of on the fence. I can't really say whether it's star shells or incendiaries. Star shells in the modern context kind of do look a little similar, considering that they have just a whole bunch of flares that pop out and burn. So I don't know. I'm kind of going to lean in the direction of it being incendiary, though, and that begs the question: what are these incendiaries being used against? Probably somewhere in the woods against Russian units if it's a Ukrainian artillery unit. But here's the video. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. And there's not really a lot to add to it. We don't really know where that's falling, what it may be hitting, if it's an incendiary, if it's a star shell, but you can see what you see, and let us know in the comments section if you think it's white phosphorus or star shells. I honestly think it's white phosphorus. And so with that, we are going to be moving on from the Belgrade area, and we're now going to be moving down into the icy cold of the northeastern part of the front lines in Ukraine. And starting off with our first clip, we're actually going to be starting off on a little bit of an unfortunate story. And I know that that's not really a good thing to start off a new area of the front line with a sad story, but I thought that this was one of the most sad things that I've seen happen to volunteers that are fighting in the area around the areas in northeastern Ukraine. And so before we get to this little video segment here, well, not video segment, picture, and explain what happened, let's go over our polls real quick to see what everyone's thinking right now about that last clip, because it seems like some people are pretty evenly divided on that one.
All right. So the question was, are these incendiary rounds in the video? It looks like 50% said yes, 12% said no, and 38% said not sure. Now, for me, I've got to say not sure. I couldn't really tell from the video, but Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it's most likely a incendiary. Considering that we've seen so many incendiaries used throughout this war, it's really hard to sign that off as a star shell. Let's actually pull up a star shell munition. Star shell munition. If that is a star shell, it's definitely not a star shell. That was incendiary. And then that brings us back around, all the way back around in a full circle again, to what was the incendiary being used on, and we can't really even see that. And so with that, I hope that addresses the poll fairly well, because this is pretty straightforward right here. Those are all star shells, and that didn't look like any of those pictures. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I guess we kind of improved that little caper right there.
All right. And with that solved, our first poll said, do you like the winter camo? It looks like 86% said yes, it's nice, 6% said not sure, and 8% said no, but it works. Now for me, honestly, at first, when I first saw the winter camo, I think a week ago, I thought it looked pretty cool. But after I saw it up close in that last one, I've got to say, I'm not sure about the black splotches on it. It kind of looks a little, I don't know, like cheap or something, but I guess it does work. It's better than wearing something that contrasts a lot. So I'd have to go with the 8%. Which is rare for me to diverge from the majority, but Enforcer, what think you?
I would have to... What think you? Okay, hey, man.
What say you, Enforcer?
What say me? Kronk say camo good. But I'd say it's not that bad for winter camo. I mean, you know, it could be worse. It could be... Let me see if I can remember this correctly. Chinese winter camo. Let me see if I can find some pictures. Actually, that's just solid white. Like, that's actually, honestly, Chinese got a pretty decent camo right there. Because I think if you have solid white camo in the winter, that's probably the best. Because you're not really trying to break up your form. Snow is solid white. You know, there's not really a lot of things that aren't covered in snow in the winter. And so, with that in mind, I guess you could say about the Chinese camo, I'm sorry, I gotta keep doing that because for some reason it's hilarious. But it literally is just saying hello China, I like ice cream. That's literally all it says. Anyways, also wait a minute, hold on. AliExpress, what the hell's going on here? This is the ugliest winter camo I have ever seen. Not a military camo, but that's hideous. Jeez,
that is bad.
We see the Communist Party in China, they sanction this camo for civilians, so that way they're easy to spot in the snow.
And also, who donated Ukraine's winter camo?
From what we know, the Canadians would provide a decent amount, but from all we've seen so far, all of it's of a Ukrainian pattern. I'll show you the Ukrainian pattern. You'll see that we haven't seen any Canadian winter camo yet. And that's the Ukrainian pattern. It's that, like, 101 Dalmatians pattern.
Yeah, I just got to say, it's not the best winter camo I've seen.
And if we go to Canadian winter camo, this is Canadian camo right here.
Oh, yeah, that's much better.
I'd honestly say Canadian winter camo does look to be a higher quality, in my opinion. Elite, not higher quality in terms of its textile, but a higher quality in terms of its camo pattern or design. I think it looks better, and I think it would blend in a lot more. Because while snow is perfectly white, these little splotches in the Canadian ammo would help you to kind of blend in with the areas where there wouldn't be snow, and it just blends you a little bit better. The giant black splotches, I don't know where those would show up. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well. I would honestly have to fall in the category because while it's not the worst camo out there, I believe there's like some zebra pattern winter zebra pattern winter camo. Let me see if I can find this. Okay, apparently that might just be in my imagination because it looks like there's no straight up Google images of the thing. But I swear I've seen something like it before. It was hideous. Also, real quick, Swedish winter camo. I love Swedish winter camo. This is right here is on a hoodie. but it's a really cool looking design. Let me see if I can find a tank with that on it. Let's see. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Oh, come on. Let me just pull this up. Swedish STRV 122. Maybe there will be a picture of it here. Oh, come on, show the winter camo. It's the coolest thing. Dang it!
Must
it's
be
not...
pretty rare for a tank.
Yeah, it's pretty rare, but it's one of the coolest winter camos I've ever seen on a tank. It's like this digital looking stuff. It's not like the universal camo pattern here in America, but I can't seem to find it. Dang it! Wait, hang on. Winter camo. I can't find it. Oh, wait a minute, hang on. This might be the closest. Nope, that's not it. It's not it. I can't find it. Dang it. I've seen it before. Anyways, I can't show that to y'all, but the Swedish have one of the coolest winter camos in the world for their armor. Anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well about the winter camo. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our super chats, because that was it for the polls. We have a $30 super chat from Blue Flam 777, another channel legend, of course, who says, love y'all's history rabbit hole runs. I know not all do, but and this is in the words of Blue Flam, but F them, LSA. Keep up the good work, fight the good fight, and Poodler is a stinky pants. Send the question to the chat, and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support, Blue Flame 777, a absolute channel legend. And I thank you so much once again for all the kind words as well. I love the history rabbit holes. They keep me very happy. It's one of the things I wanted to do when I got on YouTube at the start, was to do history things like that. And it's good to know that there are people out there who have found me that do enjoy it, but some people don't. And, you know, I understand to a degree that it's not for everyone, but I hope everyone understands that I really enjoy doing them. And if y'all could, even if y'all don't like them, try and promote them. So like your friends, your family, people you know, because they might like it, maybe, and it helps me to keep this thing going. And so, with that, well, thank you so much once again, Blue Flame 777, for being an absolute legend. And with that, we're going to get that live chat question for you. Also, real quick, I'm not sponsored by these people or anything, but if y'all have never had Jinjin's candy, Jinjin's is like a solid piece of ginger candy. Let me see if I can show this to y'all. Because I
What's crazy doing playing War Thunder? Isn't he supposed to be on the stream? You saw that in the bottom right corner?
Yeah,
I'm
did.
just playing, by the way.
But these things right here, if you don't have these, try and find some. These things are delicious. And I'm having one right now. It's just like a ginger chewy piece thing, and I just really like them. And so with that, let's get on to that live chat before I get in a rabbit hole.
All right, and the live chat question goes to T. Rogers, who says, what's the average educated Russian level? And I'd imagine that's not very high.
Average Russian education level. In Russia, the state provides most education services regulating education to the Ministry of Education and Science. Regional authorities regulate education within their jurisdictions, within the prevailing framework of federal laws. Russia's expenditure on education has grown from 2.7% of the GDP to 3.8%, but remains below the OECD average of 5.2%. Let's go down and look at the stats. Do we just have anywhere that can tell us the numbers real quick? Nope. Not there. So it looks like, according to Wikipedia, right here, it says 47.7% have completed secondary education, 26.5% have completed middle school, and 8.1% have elementary education. Holy moly! Wait, they're saying that 1 out of every 4 people in Russia only completed middle school? Yikes! Man, we thought we had it bad in America. Man, just go to Russia. They don't even know how to add. Like me. Like, dang, that's bad. Where the hell is that in this article? I've got to go find that now. Sorry, when I'm trying to read through this, I'm trying to find this specifically for y'all, because this is just bizarre, like, to hear that Where the hell is this? Like, it says that before I click on it, but then you can't find it in the article. Where is it? Come on, it's not a big article either. I'm missing the stats somewhere in here. Wait a minute, here we go. 47.7% of completed secondary education, yada, yada, yada. The highest rates of tertiary education, 24.7%, are recorded among women aged 35 to 39, compared to 19.5% for men of the same age bracket. So there's not a lot of college-educated people in Russia. A lot of them are not that bright, according to at least how far they would have gotten in school. So I guess it kind of disproves the claim that America doesn't really teach you squat, because in Russia, you just don't know squat because you didn't even really go to school. So with that, I hope that address, like, there are eight out of every 100 people in Russia, Matthew, you're going to be like, quickly, Avon, read this book for me, or else, you know, something happens to you.
Yeah.
The cat, his ball. The Soviet, блядь. Soviet onion. Like, they're gonna be reading like that. And that's what they're conscripting from, probably. Well, that's actually kind of sad when you think about it in reality. That's funny, but kind of sad. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that question fairly well. And apparently, they're not that bright. And so with that, we are on to, I believe that was the last, I mean, that was the first one, wasn't it?
That was the first one. Yes, it was.
All right. So with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Jose Ruano. This was the one we were talking about earlier. And Jose did not put in a comment, I don't think. I didn't see it in the live chat. But Jose, if you did, let me know and I will add it to it. But nonetheless, thank you for that support. And Enforcer, take it away.
And you know, Jose Ruano, you know what I'm about to say? I'm about to say thank you for your support. Thank you for making sure that I can become president in 2040. There are some people out there that would not want me to be president. But believe it or not, I will. And so I thank you so much once again for the support. I also thank you so much for actually helping us to run this channel right now, because without y'all support, it wouldn't be possible. And so if you do want us to address something, please throw it in the live chat. We will make sure to. But in the meantime, thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on going. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from BSG Wolf, who says, do you think there will be a mass uprising if another mobilization occurs? And if Putin is toppled, will whoever takes control, will they triple down or withdraw all Russian forces?
To answer that question, really good question, by the way, BSG Wolf. I think during the next partial mobilization, it's not going to be a general mobilization. They haven't gotten that desperate. It'll probably be another partial mobilization of reservists. I think that may lead to more unrest again, like we saw the first time, but I don't believe it'll be any worse than the first time. It'll probably be of the exact same level, and the Russians will either put the stuff down violently or distract them enough that it doesn't become too much of a big deal. And that's the general direction I see that going in, and if Putin gets overthrown, I would say that the new guy would probably, considering that he'd probably be overthrown for the war, I would say that the new guy would probably try and end the war as soon as possible. Even if they gave up everything in Ukraine, probably try and give it up and just blame it all on Putin and say that that was the legacy of a sick person. And so with that, I hope that addresses that question fairly well, BSG Wolf. And thank you so much once again for a really good question and also being a channel legend. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Hope we answered the question fairly well. And it's now time for us to move on to that unfortunate story north of Izium. Some volunteers, not all volunteers go to Ukraine and actively serve on the front lines. Some of them actually do work behind the lines, like logistics, support, and humanitarian aid. Some volunteers that arrived in Ukraine were taking a large amount of bread inside of their car from an unknown location in Ukraine to the town of Izium to help out the people there who are pretty much malnourished due to the lack of food and supplies in the town. And they end up running over a landmine that had been left behind by the Russians, blowing up the car, and, of course, making sure that they would never leave Ukraine alive again. And you can see right there, the overturned car, you can hardly even tell that it's a car. It just looks like a mangle of metal on the ground. You can see the wheel of the rear of the car right there. You can see the trunk. And you can see loaves of bread just scattered all around on the ground. The bread that they were trying to bring to these people to make sure that they wouldn't starve to death. And they ended up giving their lives just for the possibility of these people trying to get some kind of food. And it's really sad when you think about it. These people went over there with intentions to help, probably not even to get into the line of danger. And just because of the state of what the Russians have done to most areas, It's almost impossible not to be in constant danger just because the battlefield was there at one time or another. And these poor unfortunate people paid the price of running over a landmine because of it. And that's also a great heed. If you are from Ukraine, or you're going to Ukraine, or you're currently in Ukraine, make sure to always be incredibly careful. Stick to roads, never go off roads, never pick up anything that you don't know anything about. Don't do anything, really. Don't touch nothing unless if you know that it was yours and you had it, because something could go off, something could blow up, and it could end up killing you and all the people around you. And so make sure to be safe if you're over there. And this also shows you the dangers of just living behind the lines, considering that this happened to 2 volunteers just trying to run some food into Izium. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little unfortunate bit of news, and I feel very sorry for these people. Of course, there's really no way to hold the Russians accountable that laid this mine either. The Russians who laid this mine, they're completely unknown. And that's the worst thing about mines, is that nobody even knows who laid them or how long they've been around to even hold anyone accountable. They just go off killing people, and that's the end of it. That's the end of the story. And so with that, now we're moving out of Izium. And we're now going to be moving to the front lines themselves, up near Nizhny Duzhanka, where we saw that the Ukrainians are building bridges with the locals. Now, you know, Russians are known for tearing down bridges, but Ukrainians are known as a nice, friendly people. They build bridges, literally. And so here's the video. When you see them putting down the planks.
Hey, this is like what Top Gear did over there on the River Kwai.
Yeah, but they did it a lot better. That's a nice little bridge. And so with that, that's the end of the video, but I've got to give a huge credit to the Ukrainians. They're helping out in small ways the best they can. And while this isn't a concrete bridge or anything that'll be around forever, it will be around long enough for the people in town to be able to use this and cross that creek without freezing their feet off. And so, huge credit once again to the Ukrainian soldiers who are always doing everything they can to help out both behind the lines and help to push the Russians out of the country to win the war. And with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little area. Once again, really just neat to see. And we're now going to be moving further down the front lines into the area of Svatove to see a somewhat older video that just came out recently from what we can tell, where the Russians were hit near Svatove. And so let me go to Reddit real quick.
Oh, it got removed.
Let's see.
Honk.
Let's see here. It should pull up right there. There we go. Also, Matthew, I think you may remember the song. I'll play a little bit of it. I think you know what that is if you know.
I have no clue what that is. Like, where's it from?
Oh, y'all will see. There's the Russian tank right there. It's sitting right on the edge of that tree line. It looks like it's actually firing. We now see it moving. It looks like the video's been sped up. It's now moving across the fields, trying to get away, but it can't get away fast enough. When you see it firing off its autocannon while it's driving down the road, pretty bizarre. Now we can see something boining down there. Oh, man. You know what it is? Hang on. Let me go back. You know what it is, Matthew? It's the Russian BMP.
Oh. Oh my god, what the hell is this? I've never seen this. The hell?
It's the coffin dance.
Where's this from?
It was a meme that was around about a year ago. But with that, looks like the BMP won't be going around anymore. And I don't think they'll be doing much more of anything else. If y'all enjoyed that, I hope y'all did. Hopefully I won't get copyrighted for that. We actually got copyrighted last night for something. I wasn't able to figure out what. Actually, real quick, everyone, let me go back and let me see what it was, because I have a little bit of a hunch that I may know what it was, but I gotta check real quick. See details. I'll tell y'all what it is real quick. Hang on. It's at the 2 hour and 41 minute and 4 second mark. That is really late in the stream. Honestly, that sounds like the end of the news segment. Come on. Come on now. Oh, whatever. It's not loading, so I'll just forget about that.
What do you think it was?
I was thinking for a second it may have actually been the United 24 video that we got copyrighted for, and if that was the case,
oh, no way.
I would have been miffed, but I can't really tell right now because I can't even get the information. With that, we're now going to be moving south of Svatove, where we can see some Ukrainian forces moving through the mud, to summarize it in the easiest words for me to say, because I'm completely dyslexic for some reason every once in a while. Also, we're going to mute that.
Mama.
Mama. Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh, they're
That
gonna
is slushy.
Man, call that nicey slushy, because that stuff be slush. That was bad. That was a terrible joke.
Oh, and they got the hatch open too. That guy's gonna get some mud in the face.
that guy's gonna be driving the tank. You like driving the tank? Yeah. He's gonna start drowning in mud. But anyways, it's nice to see that they're continuing on their operations in the Svatove area, although the conditions are horrendous. And with that, it's now time for us to move out of the Svatove region, and now for us to move down into Lyman, where we also have some more unfortunate news. While we've been seeing that the Ukrainians have been doing an incredibly good job pushing the Russians back over the past several months, that doesn't mean that the Ukrainians behind the lines are safe anymore from Russian attacks. We can see that even though Lyman hasn't been on the front line for nearly 2 months at this point, Lyman is still being mercilessly shelled by Russian artillery miles away. And so here's the video of some of the damage that has been caused to Lyman from one of these prior bombardments.
Недавний прилет, бьют по мирному населению. Мы приехали пообщаться с местными, что они скажут. Да что туда говорить, даже нечего говорить.
Now with that, that's the end of the video, but once again, a very unfortunate sight. And it's terrible to think that civilians are still in the line of fire, still in the danger of being killed, not even from cruise missiles, which we usually consider to be the main killer of Ukrainian citizens behind the lines. It can actually be from artillery units directly targeting these people for no other reason than to do it. And so with that, we're now going to be moving out of the area of Lyman, and we're now going to be moving a little bit further down the lines and what am I, French? We're going to be moving past the Bakhmut area. And we're now going to be moving down into Donetsk, where we saw some Russian helicopters on the move. I guess you could say that they were on the fly. Hope they get shot down in a minute. But anyways, here's the video. There goes a Ka-52. And here comes an Mi-28 right behind it. Probably the last ones of their kind in the Russian helicopter forces. And with that, that's the end of the video, and we're now going to be moving on to the front lines themselves, because while they're doing that, the Ukrainians are having a little bit of fun. While the helicopters are away, the Ukrainians will play. And we can see them hitting some Russian positions with some RPGs near the town of Opitny. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Да.
Отсюда прямо.
Давай. Так, ну подержи.
We hear an artillery barrage going on in front of them.
Ну, давай.
Перший кумуль, потом сразу работать. Аккуратно, струя.
We now hear them firing the RPG and see it as well. We now see them reloading the RPG. Running back up to the same spot. Aiming, and then firing. And now running back again. It's like a small artillery piece they got right here. We now hear some rifle fire.
Dang.
Now they're running back.
That must have been close. They were taking off.
Yeah, they are going right now. the video is a blur. And they're laughing as well. Dude, why are they running away and laughing like it was a ding-dong ditch? Like, they're acting like it was some kind of practical prank. It's like, hi guys, we're gonna fire at the Russians today and piss them off. And then they fire at them, and then they're running away. We got him good.
These guys have been out there for a long time after laughing, running away from gunfire.
Yeah. Oh, but wait, the enforcer can't laugh at these guys. It's supposed to be serious. Meanwhile, they're laughing like clowns after they clowned on the Russians. Like, yeah, that's why I'm always laughing, because if the Ukrainian soldiers out there actually doing this can laugh their butts off doing it, why can't we? And so with that, we're gonna let the video continue.
Все, реплей.
This guy is going to do an actual mixtape in the middle of the battlefield. And with that, that's the end of the video, but it's always good to see them having a little bit of fun out in the sun and always getting a good laugh as they run away from a RPG ditch. And so with that, we're now going to be moving a little bit behind the lines to Pervomaiske, or Pervomaiske, where he sees a Ukrainian soldier talking about his experiences in the war. I'm not going to talk through this one because he pretty much explains it in his own words, also with subtitles, and we'll also have to cut it a little bit short because it is 10 minutes long, so we'll only play about 4 minutes of it. But here's the video.
Мене звуть Станіслав, позивний Школьник. Знаходимось ми на Донецькому напрямку.
That audio is
Як для
washed out.
вас розпочалася війна? Де ви повномасштабне російське вторгнення? Де ви були
На початок повномасштабного вторгнення я був в Польщі. Здивувався тому, що таке почалося. І вирішив їхати назад. Не відразу, звичайно, тому що зі мною була моя дружина і маленька дитина, тобто я розумів, де я їх буду вести. Але жінка бачила, що я не знаходжу собі місця, і тому підтримала мене, і ми зібралися і приїхали сюди.
То ви повернулися з дружиною і маленькою дитиною в Україну, щоб воювати?
Так. Навіть не можу це об'яснити, але воно прийнялося. Дружина, можна сказати, в безпечному місці у нас більш-менш воно саме тихе по Україні, як мені здається.
А що саме не давало вам спокою, щоб просто можна було зрозуміти?
То мій обов'язок, то моя країна. І треба її захищати. Тут мої побратими, і я...
А до того у вас була якась військова справа, ви розуміли, що таке взагалі війна?
Так, з 2015 року я приймав участь в АТО 3 роки. Потім інша служба, потім звільнився, поїхав в Польщу.
Взагалі, повномасштабний російський напад на Україну, для вас це була якась несподіванка, чи ви розуміли, що це буде?
До цього йшло, і цього не хотілося, але воно сталося. Це все зрозуміли, але не розуміли, коли і як це почнеться.
Що відбувається на даний момент в зоні бойових дій? Безпосередньо ви, ваш підрозділ, чим займаєтеся?
Ось нещодавно заходили на позицію вночі, тому що позиція така, що можуть зайти російські солдати. Стояли в наблюденні, як сказати, і по рації передали, що лізуть. Вночі через посадку на нас йдуть. Відкрили стрілецький бій в тепловізори, побачили їх. Відкрили стрілецький бій з ними, насипали добре їм з ручних гранатометів, насипали добре їм з підствольних гранатометів, стрілецькою зброєю. Трошки нам здалося, що нас буде мало, запросили трошки підмоги, прибігли ще хлопці до нас. Потім відкрився артилерійський вогонь наший, щоб прикрити нас і трошки їх відпугнути. І так от годинки 4 так трошки повоювали. Нічка була весела.
Можемо дізнатися про результати. Вдалося знищити там чимало російських окупантів?
Так, і знищили, і останні інші відійшли.
Що відчуваєш після таких боїв? От коли ти бачиш ворогів перед собою, ти їх знищуєш. Що керує тобою в цей момент і взагалі після бою?
Під час бою керує тобою, як сказати, не помста, а відчуття, що ти захищаєш щось. А після бою змішані чувства, і сміх, і сльоз ще не було. В основному сміх згадуєш всі ці моменти, тому що в бою багато, можна сказати, веселого, те, що тебе заспокоює. Там хтось впав, хтось спітокнувся, там такі моменти. І після закінчення бою завжди йде підведення ітогів бою. Це завжди. Тобто, що хто робив правильно, хто що робив неправильно, це завжди. Прямо після закінчення починається це обсуждення.
Ви повернулись з Польщі і почали воювати, так? Продовжили, точніше, воювати. А хто ці хлопці, хто ваші побратими? Хто вони, ким вони були до війни? Це професійні військові, чи це такі ж хлопці, як ви, тобто, які заробляли собі на життя, просто заробляли на життя і в критичний для країни момент почали їх захищати?
Хтось мав досвід зі зброєю, з війною, хтось звичайні робітники. Ну, взагалі тут більшість це звичайні робітники, які просто стали на захист своєї країни.
Хтось каже, що
And with that, we're going to have to end it right here because we allow this to continue on until the very end. Although it's incredibly interesting, we sadly will not have time to cover the rest of the news. But if y'all would like to watch this video in its entirety, we do have a link to the map in the description below where you can go and click on this exact link and watch the entire thing from start to finish. But sadly, we're going to have to move on here. But it's still incredibly interesting to actually hear the accounts and details from a soldier himself that's been on the front lines. With that, there's not been a lot to report from the Donetsk region. It seems that things are as they've been, nothing really much going on. And we're now going to be moving down to the Volodar area where we saw the Russians are raining down incendiaries on the Ukrainians. Also, this video, considering that this is clearly white phosphorus or thermite, it also makes it very evident that whatever was being fired into Russia near the Belgrade area was some kind of incendiary.
Ёбаный в рот, сука.
And with that, that's the end of the video. But once again, the Russians are using incendiaries on a populated area. You can see that this is actually in the middle of some high-rises in the Volodar area, and they're willing to burn anyone to death if it means that they can hopefully do something. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to the next bit of news in the Pavlivka area, where we saw a Ukrainian firing an MG3 machine gun. Just to let y'all know, it was pretty cool. Here's the video. Is that music? That's music.
It's music.
It's music. Musica. And now we can see him firing a couple of more bursts. We had to mute it, sadly. We can't hear the rip of the MG3. It's crazy to think that the MG3 is just a slightly improved version of the MG42 that's been in service since World War II. You see them still firing into the distance. Short little bursts. James T. Crux said, I feel a rabbit hole coming. No, not this time. We're going to save the rabbit hole on this one for another time. Maybe a video. Like, if y'all enjoy the videos how I'm doing them, I'll probably just do them like that, where I just am on my computer screen showing tabs and stuff, because it's fairly easy for me to do and fairly easy to pump out really quick ones. Also, it allows me to make rabbit holes happen, like in a way that people actually want to see it. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip and on out of the southern front, because beyond that, nothing at all has happened down in the southern front, rather than some incendiaries and the Ukrainians firing an MG3. We're now going to be moving into Kherson, where we saw that the Ukrainians have somehow crossed the Dnipro River, really without any resistance, and raised the Ukrainian flag on a crane on the other side. And so with that, here's the video. We cannot let that piano play. That is probably a copyrighted piano. And we can see the Ukrainian flag flying over the crane. The Ukrainians have finally made it to the southern banks of the Dnipro River. Not in incredibly large amounts. That's why it wasn't the title of tonight's news. But they're still there. They were at least there at a time. That's not true. That's not true. The news article said but they are there. And so with that, that's the end of the video. And it's pretty nice to see that the Ukrainians at least did drop by the southern bank of the Dnipro River and drop off a flag. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from the Kherson area, And we're now going to be moving up to Kyiv, because before we get to the speech from President Zelensky, there was an incredibly cool video put out today of the morale of the Ukrainians inside of Kyiv as a reporter or an interviewer interviewed these people and asked them what they thought about the situation and were they demoralized at all by Russian attacks on the city.
Та ніяк, нічого. Ну, просто починаєш думати про те, що як там хлопцям, і зразу відпадає.
Они придурки, ни хрена у них не получится. Короче, я выживу. Если о себе говорить, то остальных, и остальные выживут. Ни хрена там такого нет.
Ми вже готові, скільки ми все готово. Спокійно відносимося, все є, вода набрана, їда є, фонарики є.
Просто сидимо в коридорі, в ванні. Я думаю, всі звикли, все нормально.
Що, я звик вже. Вже всі звикли. Да, вже всі звикли, тому боятися нічого. Коли б'ють, то українці становляться ще сильнішими.
Хай пробують. В принципі, в тому якому стресі ми вже знаходимося деякий час, тобто воно вже іноді якби в звичку заходить.
Якби ми знали, що нам таке буде, то я б сама б пішла бричу, окопи рила б там, як кріт. От. Треба готуватися. Щоб був мир, треба готуватися до війни.
And with that, that's the end of the video. But one thing's clear, regardless of what the Russians do, the Ukrainians will survive and will make sure to endure regardless of the hardships they face, because they are all a united country and they all understand the hardships that each other are facing during such a difficult time. With that, we're now going to be moving down to the speech from President Zelensky here on day 284. Actually, let me make sure to correct that. Day 284 of the war in Ukraine. So without further ado, here's a speech from the one, the only President Volodymyr Zelensky. Slava Ukraini!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Провів чергове засідання Ставки. Командувачі доповіли ситуацію на конкретних напрямках, на найважливіших напрямках. На Донеччині Бахмут, Солидар зараз, як і раніше, найбільш гаряче, найбільш болісно. Робимо все, щоб допомогти нашим хлопцям на цьому напрямку, нашим героям, які тримають там оборону. Кожен, хто там, заслуговує найвищої вдячності. А зараз окремо подякую прикордонникам Чопського загону, які воюють саме на Бахмутському напрямку і сьогодні приземлили черговий літак окупантів. Луганщина і Харківщина, зміцнюємо наші сили, південь, продовжуємо мінусувати можливості окупантів, кордон укріплюємо, увесь периметр. Чорноморська акваторія, працюємо, щоб у підсумку калібрі могли бути хіба що на дні. Звичайно, обговорили подальші кроки в напрямку повної духовної незалежності України і захисту нашої держави від неформальних мереж впливу держави-терориста. Окрема розмова на Ставці щодо енергетики, хід відновлення і захист об'єктів. Працюємо над цим постійно. Зараз у світі завершилась, на жаль, без серйозних рішень дискусія щодо прайскепів, тобто щодо обмеження експортної ціни російської нафти. Бо не назвеш серйозним рішення встановити таку межу для російських цін, яка цілком комфортна для бюджету держави-терориста. Росія нанесла вже колосальні збитки усім країнам світу, свідомою дестабілізацією енергоринку, а світ ніяк не може наважитись на її справжнє енергетичне роззброєння. Це слабка позиція. І лише питання часу, коли все одно доведеться застосовувати сильніші інструменти. Шкода, що цей час буде втрачений. Логіка очевидна, якщо обмеження ціни російської нафти $60 замість, наприклад, 30, про які говорили, зокрема, Польща і країни Балтії, то російський бюджет отримає на рік близько $100 мільярдів. Ці гроші підуть не тільки на війну і не тільки на подальше спонсорування Росією інших терористичних режимів та організацій. Ці гроші підуть і на подальшу дестабілізацію якраз тих країн, які намагаються зараз уникнути серйозних рішень. Провів сьогодні нараду з очільниками нашого зовнішньополітичного блоку. Підсумували тиждень, готуємо нові заходи на грудень і січень. Дуже потужні заходи. Позиції України звучатиме, інтереси України будуть реалізовані попри все. І ще одне. Вчора я спілкувався зі студентами університетів. Університету Сковороди в Переяславі, Києво-Могилянської академії, Харківського національного педагогічного університету імені Сковороди. 3 інституції з багатьох, які бережуть пам'ять про Сковороду та й бережуть саму українськість. А сьогодні відвідав ще й виставку в Українському домі в Києві «Світ Сковороди». І це правильно, що у таких умовах, у такий рік по всій країні відбуваються заходи до 300-річчя Сковороди. Це правильно, що є сили, є енергія, щоб дбати про українське в усіх його проявах. Бо наша перемога здобувається силою, силою зброї і силою духу, силою воїнів і силою народу, силою держави і силою культури, силою нашої єдності, нашого вміння працювати разом заради українських інтересів і вміння підтримати одне одного. Підтримати, бо ми українці, і сили одного цього аргументу має бути нам усім достатньо. Слава усім, хто воює за Україну, слава усім, хто працює заради нашої держави. Вічна пам'ять і шана усім, хто віддав життя за незалежність. Слава Україні!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 284 of the war in Ukraine. And that also wraps up our news segment as well. I thank you all so much once again for watching. If y'all did enjoy, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, because not only does it make us happy, it keeps you in touch with the news. We run this news every single day of the week, except for Mondays, and we have plans to roll out all loads of content of all kinds, explaining all, really everything. We're even going to move into explaining things like the potential railroad strike, which was a plan of mine to eventually do, the potential railroad strike that was just avoided in the United States by a hair, and explain what was going on there in an unbiased way. We're not going to try and pick any sides with that. We're just going to explain what happened, because, gotta be honest with y'all, I found that to be pretty interesting, and considering I'm a huge railroad geek, that was something that I looked at a pretty good deal. Anyways, with that, thank you all once again for watching, and we're now about to be moving on into the question segment, where we're going to address everyone's super chats and also as many live chats as we can. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so we have 3 polls to address, and the first one said, do you think if Russian citizens were more highly educated, that they would oppose the war more? It looks like 61% said yes, they would be more aggressive in opposing it, 16% said not sure, and 23% said no, it would remain the same. Now, I certainly think that more education would lead them to be more politically involved, which would probably lead to them opposing the war. But that's just my take on it. Enforcer, what's your take?
I think if they were more educated, I think they would oppose the war, considering that they have such a limited concept of really anything, considering their lack of education. It seems as though it would just be commonplace for them to really just accept the way things are for the most part. That's the way I'm looking at it right now. That's how I'm taking it. I think if they were more educated, they would oppose the war, because generally, the more people get educated, the more they think they know what's best, and that's usually always against whatever the government's doing. And so they would oppose the war if they were more educated. And so that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, or the poll fairly well. And do you have anything to add to that, Matthew?
Nothing left to add, but I certainly think that education is important. For example, when you look over here in the West, we're much, much, much more involved in the entire process of what goes on in foreign policy. And Russia, I know it's a dictatorship basically, but that would certainly lead them to uprise a lot quicker if they were more educated. But
actually, Matthew,
yes.
Speaking of which, to add on to this, I actually saw someone earlier, I forgot who it was, sadly. I'm sorry about that. It happened like 40 minutes ago. But I saw someone in the live chat say, college education does not mean you're smart. And I got to be honest with you,
true.
That's very true. Being educated on any level doesn't prove you're smart, but at least it gives you a basis of knowledge to work off of. Like, I'm supposing that if you were in high school all the way up until 12th grade here in the United States, you would at least understand a little bit of why the world exists the way it does today, although they don't really connect the dots all too well in history classes in school. But you would think that they would at least have a little bit of a better grip of what's going on around them, instead of some kind of a simple understanding that they probably have otherwise. But I do have to agree, I have actually met some pretty dumb kids in college that I honestly have no idea how they've even made it there or how they've made it so far, and some of them hardly even get by. But But just in case if any of my friends are on, it's not y'all. That's why y'all are my friends, because y'all are actually pretty smart. But I have seen some people in college where you're like, holy moly, how did you get here? And how have you survived? Anyways.
Let's be real, though. Ever since I have started college, I'm about to wrap it up next semester. I only have 2 classes left. I don't feel any smarter than when I began at all. It feels like college is just a hoop to jump through.
I mean, like, in some ways it kind of is. It's just to prove that you can stick the course, I guess, in a way. But I mean, like, in some ways, I have learned a couple of things. But those classes are few and far in between. For the most part, I usually feel like I'm just spinning my gears to get nowhere. Like, for example, this is something actually that's funny to me. I'm about to wrap up my modern Chinese history class, and actually, interestingly enough, well, I'm not going to go into that, but I'm finishing up my Chinese history class, and I've been writing papers and stuff in that class. Of course, reading and watching the course material and the lectures and all that stuff. Well, really just reading the books. But I generally work off of my knowledge and then use the books as backup for the sources. And I've gotten letters from the professor saying that it's very good. It's some of the best stuff he's seen ever as a summary of Chinese history. And, you know, that's also something funny to me, is that I have a professor from China who's telling me, hey, you know, pretty good, decent amount about Chinese history, and you're summarizing it quite well. Good job. And then I've gotten like 2 comments on the Chinese video where they're like, you have no understanding about China. And I'm literally taking a class on it right now. And the professor from China is like, yeah, you're doing pretty good. But anyways, you know, I'm just generally working on my knowledge, and that's how I felt all the way through college, is that either I was bound above what college was going to teach me, and it is a challenge for some people, and I'm breezing through it, but I don't have that kind of ego about me. I honestly just think it may just be easy, and people who find it hard don't apply themselves.
And something I just saw the user Ukraine-Russia war say the school of life is best. And honestly, that is the truth. Experience in like real world things is much more important than having academic knowledge, at least in my opinion. Because there's a lot of people, you know, going around with a lot of degrees. I'm not saying they're meaningless or anything. There's degrees out there like science and math that actually involve a lot of skill and a lot of intelligence. But there's also a lot of other people running around that have degrees that aren't necessarily smart, but they were given a degree so they feel smart and they act like it, but they're really not, and they don't have any street smarts. I personally know a lot of people like that at my college, and that's not a put down or anything. I'm not saying I'm any better than them, but that's just the truth.
I would say really my critique of the modern college system is that some people have no idea how anything works, but they feel if they explain things in the most complicated terms possible with the most complex words, that means they're intelligent, and I've seen that that's never really the case. That's also why we never really get into this channel really into in-depth words. That's why I don't sit there and go, the QBC and the ODD and all that crap, because who cares? It's overcomplication for no reason. You can get the same thing across with simpler words that get the same level of detail. It's pointless. And that's one thing that I have noticed a good deal is that, and I've rarely run into it. I've had some great professors, especially some fantastic professors this semester, but in previous semesters, you would have a professor that would sit there and act like making sure that you understand complex words, or at least them saying complex words, made things on another intelligence level, and it didn't. And, you know, you could ask them a basic question about what they're talking about in simple wordage, and they wouldn't know how to answer it. And that's something that I have seen before, and it's kind of a bit of a letdown, because it's like, you know, being intelligent isn't all about having a vast vocabulary of words. It's really about understanding what's going on. And, you know, and you know, not to ring my own bell, but, you know, it's like, with this war, you know, there's people out there like Millie, who's probably like the best example here to set up, who say things about the war that have no basis, no sense in logic, and no historical context. And then I will say something like, you know, the Russians will do this, or they'll do that, they'll move this way or that way, and then they do. And I use historical context to do it. And that's because people who believe they're intelligent always have to act like it has to be spontaneous and it has to be original and new. And they don't understand that sometimes to actually understand what's going on or to do something, you just have to look at what people have done before and emulate it. Napoleon was no genius. He really just imitated a lot of Caesar's strategies because he read a lot about what he did 1,000 years, well, almost 1,800 years before he ever came around, and then he just copied them in the modern day with a couple of small changes, and it worked like a charm. And, you know, that's really just all it is. There's not a lot original going on in the world. And I think that some of y'all, I don't know if you've heard about this theory, Matthew, but there is nothing original in this world. And whenever there is, it's so few and far in between that it is literally world changing for a new idea to actually come along.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And the longer time goes by, the less original ideas are going to get because more of them have been developed already.
Yeah, and it takes even more effort to try and come up with an original idea, and even then, it's working off of 100, if not thousands, of unoriginal ideas that have already been around forever. And so it's really just an amalgamation and a creation of a new idea made out of old ones, kind of like a zombie in a way. But yeah, that's really just what it all boils down to me. So you're right. It doesn't mean, just because you don't go to college doesn't mean you're on some other plane and you're more intelligent. Doesn't mean that at all. You can be pretty intelligent, just gotten out of 6th grade, really, if you know how things click. But with that, I hope that answers that further on. I hope we addressed that because that was a great point that I wasn't able to address earlier. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next poll.
All right. And the next poll said, if you were a Ukrainian with a family, would you stay and fight, or would you want to leave with your family? Now, this one relied on a little bit of just raw, brutal honesty. It looks like 80% said I would stay and let family leave. 8% said not sure. Only 2% said I would stay and also make my family stay. And 10% said I would want to leave with family. Now, for me, if I'm being totally straight up honest, the first instinct is you want to leave with your family, because that would be very hard to separate from your family, not knowing if you're going to live or not. Especially at the beginning of the war, nobody knew exactly how bad it was going to be. But at the same time, you got to stay loyal to your country, and it looks like a lot of Ukrainians have, and they've answered the call to fight, which is very admirable. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, and of course, Matthew, you hit it right on the nail. Everyone's first-hand inclination whenever presented with adversity or any kind of fear is to try and leave with their family and make sure that stays as a whole. But that also removes the patriotic duty you have to a country. And, you know, I'm not here to talk about the blind patriot, but you are born in a country, no matter where you are in the world, you're born into a country, and you owe a lot to that country just because you're there. You're part of their team. You were born into it, whether you like it or not. You live the same life, you breathe the same air, you eat the same food as everyone else in that country, and you owe it to them. You owe it to all of these great people, because every nation, like the United States, is made up of great people. Every nation is made up of a whole load of great, interesting, varied people. And you owe it to all of them not to sit there and tell them to pick up the tab. You know, hey, y'all go over there and y'all die on the front lines. You leave your families behind, and I'm going to pick up with my family and I'm going to run off. That just seems cowardice, especially when so many people are making the same decision as you've been faced with, and they actually picked to be brave. And of course, you know, bravery isn't just blindly going into something, it's knowing what will happen to you. And, you know, war's no cakewalk, it's a pretty bad thing. But knowing that and still going and doing it, that's what the true measure of bravery and courage and sacrifice is. And I think that's just owed of really everyone that there ever is. You know, like in the United States, I think if we went to war, and I was telling my mom a while ago, you know, it doesn't really count because it didn't happen, but I was telling my mom a while ago when we thought that a Russian missile had hit Poland, which didn't turn out to be the case. It was a Ukrainian S-300, according to the official story. I was saying that night before the news aired, because at the time, you know, and going back through that, we got a whole bunch of crap for that the day after, but when that news was coming out that night, everyone in the world was saying that that was a Russian missile. About 8 hours after we aired, the story changed and it was a Ukrainian missile. So, you know, it's like, I can't really help that the news was coming out that way when it happened, you know, and hell, even bigger channels out there. There's a channel out there with like 520,000 subscribers who still swears up and down that it was a Russian missile. But anyways, getting off of that rabbit hole because that's getting sidetracked. Say what?
It was a cough.
Oh, but anyways, I was sitting there and saying, you know, we have a duty, even if it's not our country, as pretty much the defender of the Western world here in the United States, to fight the wars that we kind of find to be in our interest, even if it doesn't really seem like it's directly connected to us. And so I would have gone and tried to join the officer corps, or at least an officer training school, considering that I have enough college, I believe, experience or credits that would be possible, and try and get into the U.S. Army. Of course, I have scoliosis, so whether I would get in or not is another question, but even if you can't get, even if they say no, it's your obligation to lie to get in. Like, you ought to start lying to them. Do you have go to another office? Do you have scoliosis? No. okay, come in. And then if they find out, they kick you out again. You just keep trying until either they threaten to arrest you the next time you try, or you get in. One or the other. You've got to do that. That's your duty.
It's the exact same thing that me and also a friend at university were talking about as well. And my friend at university is of a completely different political like side than me. But we were both saying that we'd want to go enlist if that was actually a missile from Russia and it started a war, just because that's the right thing to do. Also, it's really hard, I would imagine, to live with yourself knowing that you've taken the benefits from a country and you're not willing to defend it. That would probably be a tough thing to live with.
And you know, the thing that haunts me the most is the idea of all of our friends that are our age, because we're of course, being 20 and 21, we're within enlistment or recruitment age. And to think that all of our friends would have gone over there probably, maybe even coming out mangled or dead, and we just were cowards and we didn't end up going over there, even though I gotta be honest with y'all, I know I'm not gonna be no hero. I'm not gonna be some guy climbing on top of an enemy tank, spraying machine guns at everyone in every direction. I'd probably be scared as hell. But you still gotta do it because it's your duty to your nation to do that kind of stuff. Even if you don't necessarily agree with it or not, you know, not being a blind patriot or anything. But even if you don't see the goal in it, there is a goal. There is a point. And so, in my opinion, even though it would be really tough for me, and of course, me and Matthew, we don't have families, I would still have to join up, and I would have to go and fight. If it was my country, that's just part of your duty. Even if they turn you down, you got to keep trying until they either force you to not try again, or you finally get in. So with that, I hope that addresses the poll fairly well. And I actually see some people talking about, you know, let's see, I'm trying to, let's see, disabilities considered in the UK, you can serve in many ways. It's your home, you defend it. Now, Miss 77, I'd have to agree. If it's where you live, you have to defend it. Like like leaving your country is pretty much picking up and saying, I don't care about anything about me or my legacy or my heritage in my country. I'm just going to leave it because I'm scared. Forget it all. You know, it's a spit in the face to everyone you know. Like I couldn't live with that kind of decision. That's something that would never jive with me. Even if I ended up mangled beyond belief or dead, I would rather end up dead or mangled than leaving all of my friends to pick up the tab of a massive war that this nation would find itself in and not be there. You know, and that's what's always motivated people to go and fight, is thinking, man, I'm going to leave my friends high and dry because they're all joining and I'm not going to join, and they're going to come back and they're going to ask me, well, what do you do in the war? Well, I stayed at home because I was a coward. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the final poll before we get to our questions says, do you think that the West needs to revitalize its attention to the Ukraine-Russia war? It looks like 82% said yes, the West must pay attention, 4% said not sure, and 14% said no, attention remains consistent. Now I think one thing is certain, attention is not remaining consistent. It looks like a good vast majority of people are getting, I guess what you could call war fatigue. I don't know if it's a matter of they just can't handle the reality of the situation anymore, or they just simply don't have the attention span for it. But I think we definitely need to make sure that people stay alert to what's going on over there, because if we don't focus on it, we're going to stop sending aid. The politicians that don't want to support sending aid to Ukraine are going to be basically permitted to not send it. So we need to keep attention on it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to certainly agree with that. I believe that attention is starting to wane. We have been noticing that on our channel and across the entirety of YouTube. If you look at, like here, let me show you all this. Google Trends, because this shows you the interest that people have in things. You can just look at it. Like, for example, let's type in China. You'll see that China as a search term has actually been fairly consistent. People are always looking for stuff on China. And when you see right here that they haven't extrapolated the data yet, but due to what's going on in China right now, it is starting to spike. Now, if we compare that to Ukraine, let's say, take a look at Ukraine, and it's almost, it blew up when the war began, but you can see that it's consistently getting almost rock bottom. Like right now, China is 3 times more searched on Google than Ukraine is, and it's constantly dropping off because, you know, people are interested in it, people do care, but people also get worn out a little bit. And also on top of that, it is you know, there's people out there who sometimes hop on a bandwagon, and then as they see other people are hopping off the bandwagon, they just hop off too. But I think it's very important to keep attention on this war and keep focused on it, because as a part of our interest, the importance of this war has never faded as this war is going on. It may be 9 months old, but it's as important to the Western world now as it was 9 months ago when it started. And so, with that, I hope that does address the poll fairly well. I believe that everyone should continue to pay attention to this until the war is done. Make sure to see it through to its finish. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And I hope we addressed that one fairly well. Do you have anything to add to it, Matthew?
So nothing left to add to that one. So with that being said, we are moving on to our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have a visit from Walter A. Lakota Jr., a channel legend who puts in a $100 donation, and which is very generous of him. Walter says, Aloha, Enforcer Matt, and LSA from OG Ellison Bosun. Fun fact, Sun Yat-sen has 2 statues in Hawaii. One is in Chinatown, and the other is in Iolani School. He was in Hawaii twice, and what was happening inspired him for the Kutaming Party.
The Kuomintang Party, which is it's a really cool Chinese history all around. And also, let me make sure this is the guy I'm thinking about. This is not the guy I was thinking about. There's another guy who's also incredibly important to Chinese history. And, you know, I'll try and summarize this the best I can, because I think you'll all find this a little funny. And maybe I'll go over this in the video I make about China, I think tomorrow. I don't know. I'll have to look at my schedule tomorrow, but I think I could probably make it tomorrow. In Hong Kong, when Hong Kong was a British colony in 1911, there was a guy there, a Cantonese guy, who, I forgot his name, but he was going to college at the University of Hong Kong. Well, he got enlightened with the ideas of democracy and nationalism in a way, because those were the 2 things that were kind of taking off in China at the time, was nationalism and socialism, was one or the other. So he walked across the border from Hong Kong into China, and he single-handedly made the entire Qing dynasty collapse within a month. Like, he just walked across the border, he was like, hey guys, y'all ever heard of democracy? And right after that, the whole entire country literally just shattered into pieces. A coup started down in the area around Hong Kong, in Guangzhou, Foshan, and I believe another town, and the army, the Qing dynasty's army, literally started taking over forts and going in rebellion against the boy emperor at the time, who was like 8 years old. And because of that, the advisors to the boy emperor were like, hey, little kid, hey, yeah, stop playing with your toys real quick. You need to leave, like, right now. Things are going bad. And so he just abdicated because he didn't know any better, and the entire thing collapsed on the spot. Now, that is not the same guy that I'm talking about, right, that you're talking about, Walter. Sun Yat-sen is a little bit different, but still, pretty interesting guy. He is the predecessor, in a way. Also, he wasn't around for long. He was only around for about a month or 2. But still, he was, I guess you could say, the predecessor to probably the most important guy in the Kuomintang's history on mainland China, Chiang Kai-shek. And I believe there's a couple of people in between him and Chiang Kai-shek. Let me see if I'm correct. Yes, I believe so. Because he came into office in 1943, and then he was no longer in office in 1948. So there was definitely a couple of guys who came in between him and Chiang Kai-shek. But he would kind of set the groundwork for the Kuomintang and the Republic of China to last long enough that he would come around. Also, due to the collapse of the Qing, they ushered in the era of the warlords, which is also bizarre, because the KMT, the Kuomintang, or the Republic of China, they didn't really control the whole country ever. They only controlled a part of it on the east, where most of everyone lived. The rest of it was controlled by warlords, although it was kind of under their, I guess you could say, administration in a way, kind of weird. Anyways, it is an incredibly interesting history. Also really cool to hear that this guy came from Hawaii. I never actually knew that. I never actually knew he was in Hawaii at a time. And that's really cool. That's just really cool to hear that that's what inspired him to kind of be one of the founding fathers of the Kuomintang. That's just really weird. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support. You've helped us out a great load, Walter. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for viewers like you who support this channel, it wouldn't be possible for us to run this stream. And so thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and Walter threw in another $20 super chat and said, it's me again. He's called Dr. Sun Yat-sen. The one you pulled up is in Wikipedia's article.
let's see. Let me make sure I get this right. Dr. Sun Yat-sen. Sun Yat-sen. I think this is that guy. And let's see if he was a doctor. Let's see. Chinese statement. Physician. Yes, he was. He was a doctor. So you are correct, Mr. Walter A. Lakota Jr. He was a doctor. Can someone get a doctor up in here? Man, imagine if he got, like, assassination attempt against him and he got shot. He's like, it hit the liver. I'm okay for now. We need to get to a hospital. But anyways, thank you so much once again for providing that little bit of information. And also, let me see if we can find his statues. Sun Yat-sen, Hawaii. First game to Hawaii as a 13-year-old boy. Wow, he went to Hawaii early. Also, is that a statue right there? Come on, load. Come on. That is a statue. As of him as a boy, I believe. Probably like when he was 13. That's pretty cool. And so with that, thank you so much once again for supporting and sharing with us a really cool bit of Hawaiian history. And, well, Hawaiian Chinese history in a way. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for allowing us to go down a really interesting rabbit hole.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Roderick Thomas, who says, I want more Sam Elliott voiceovers. You guys are doing a great job, and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for enjoying the Sam Elliott voice. I love doing it. It was really fun. Sadly, YouTube didn't think so, and so they didn't really promote it a lot. And I was hoping that that video would get a decent amount of views, and people were like, hey, that's pretty funny. But sadly, only so many saw it. Still, all of y'all who saw it, y'all loved it. And I'm glad to know that y'all did like it, and we will try and do more voice impersonations in the future, because the top 1%... Wait, hang on. For some reason, when I do this with a headset on, I can't ever get it right. So 1 second. Let me take it off. I won't be able to hear you for a second, Matthew, but... The top 1% of the people on Wall Street own half of this nation's voice impressions. That's not right. We need to make sure that everyone has universally accepted voice impersonations in this country. We need to make sure that it's spread out evenly amongst them all, and that it's all pretty high quality. Now, listen, son, there's a lot of content right there. It costs billions and billions of dollars to produce voice impersonations. And I don't think you got it in you. Your ratings are terrible. No one watches the show anymore. I'm just kidding. A lot of people do. And it's just terrible. Just give it up, son, while you can. Now listen here. I don't like the way you're talking to my boy Barney. I'm gonna punch you in the face. Listen,
Barney.
son. Listen, son. You just got his name wrong. Matthew just said he called him Barney. It's not Barney the dinosaur dingus. It's Bernie. All right, get it right. All right. Now I'm trashing on him, but at least trash on him properly. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed that, and thank you so much once again for the support. And I hope you enjoyed that little rabbit hole of me doing like 3 voices at one time. And so thank you so much once again. Also, Marcia said it was better last night. It was. But anyways, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for enjoying the impression. And I will try and make more probably as YouTube shorts.
All right. And also, Rowdy BME said, go ahead in this echo chamber. There's 0 chance that Russia loses. Mark my words. Well, guess what? There's 100% chance that Russia loses. They don't stand a chance in hell. The Ukrainians are going to fight to the end, and down with Putler.
Wait a minute.
So bye-bye bot.
Did someone throw in a super chat to say that?
No, it was a live chat.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait, let me read it. Oh, man. Go ahead.
What you talking about, man?
Whoa. You're lying two-faced pony soldier? I bet you can't even do push-ups, fatty. How about you get down and do some push-ups, fatty? Anyways, let me read this. Rowdy BME. Hang on, is this guy trying to make a play on our man BME, the legend?
I don't like the Rowdy BME. I like the normal BME, though.
Yeah, I like the normal BME.
BME's thinking, that guy's not related to me whatsoever.
Go ahead and circle joke in this echo chamber. There's 0 chance Russia loses. I hope they do, but they aren't. Mark my words. Well, pal, let me tell you, man, it's been 9 months and they haven't won, ever. All right? So how about you get real, huh? Anyways, with that, we're on to the next one. Also, thank you for pointing that out.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Vance Hicks, who says, Enforcer, do you think the Russians will be beat back to their borders and just hold there, creating a new Vietnam, waiting for the world to forget?
Oh, man, that's honestly, if I see the Ukrainians pushing the Russians out, and Putin survives, that's major tenet right there. I think that's what it'll become. I think it'll end up kind of being like Korea, where you have this massive demilitarized zone on some parts of the border, in hotspots, I guess you say, mostly near major highways. You know, some other areas would be lesser patrolled, but I think it will probably end up that way if Putin stays in power and they're pushed all the way out of Ukraine. Like, for example, we may see that the Russians may just pump so many guys into Crimea, even if they don't have training, that the Ukrainians may just try and sit there and wait it out, or maybe commit some attrition down there, or they might be able to push them out, or, you know, there could be nuclear war. We don't really know with Crimea, because that's a whole can of worms. We've gone into it before, but it takes a massive rabbit hole to explain. But they could push them all the way out of Ukraine, and then we just see that it just becomes a DMZ. And there's a ceasefire. There'll probably be a ceasefire agreement like there was down here in the Donetsk and Luhansk republics for a long time, and it just goes from there, and the war never officially ends. That may be a way that this war goes, and honestly, one of the more realistic endings. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and also a very interesting end result, a possible end result that we could be looking at. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
You're right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Corn Tech, who says less educated population won't have critical thinking skills to question or challenge the power of the state.
Let's see, can you reread that one again real quick?
He said less educated population won't have the critical thinking skills to question or challenge the power of the state. And that is true.
You are absolutely correct. And that's what you'll see in a lot of authoritarian regimes. For example, you know, and it's always, ooh, you know, it's always like, can I really say this on YouTube? Because, you know, I don't know if y'all know. Well, we won't go into that. But anyways, in the 60s in China during the Cultural Revolution, Mao actually had all the universities closed down because that was a tool of the West, and we don't need universities in China. Also, they did something really smart in China called a rankless army, which literally means that no one in the army had a rank of significance or superiority over each other, and that ended up making China lose the war with Vietnam, or hardly win it. Whichever way you look at it, it almost ended up as a stalemate in between the two. So, actually, let me pull that up for y'all. You may not know that. China actually went to war with Vietnam right at the end of the Vietnam War. China-Vietnam War, 1979. So 1975, Vietnam War ends. 4 years later, China and Vietnam go to war. As we can see right here, the result was a status quo antebellum. Both sides claimed victory. Tee-hee! And imagine that. Imagine that. The Chinese supported Vietnam through the Vietnam War. They end up really just making the United States get tired of the whole thing and leave, although we were kind of winning in a way. And then, you know, and I'm sure some people will say we weren't winning. I can explain that probably in a video sometime. But anyways, weren't really winning. And then 4 years later, they become the enemy of the Vietnamese and attack them after supporting them almost the entirety of the Vietnam War. Kind of ironic in a way. And the Vietnamese actually did a fairly good job. According to the casualty losses, the Chinese lost around 7,000 soldiers, around 14,000 to 21,000 wounded, and the Vietnamese lost around 42,000 to 57,000 soldiers killed. So while they lost a lot more, the Chinese still ended up not winning, which is probably the funniest thing about the whole war. Anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, kind of like an interesting little side bit. And also, that's something that they did then, is that they tried to break down pretty much anything that showed any kind of significance or made someone, you know, supposedly in their minds better than the other, and it didn't end up well for them. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well. It's a really interesting example, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick to go over this poll, the question was, if social media did not exist, would it be substantially easier for dictators to commit war crimes? It looks like 74% said yes, social media has had an effect. 6% said not sure, and 20% said no, they would still do it anyways. Now on this one, I'm going to have to go with the minority and say it would not have an effect. They would still do it anyways, because as we see today, even though the war crimes are being captured on video and uploaded to social media, Russia is still doing it anyway. And really, what is the catch for Russia? Because nothing's really going to happen to them about it. Because there's not really jurisdiction of the international courts, to my understanding. And they'd have to come up with some loophole to actually make that work. But unfortunately, what say you?
I would say social media has no effect. And the best example of that is this area right here, Western China. If y'all don't know what's going on there, is because social media really doesn't have that much of an effect, actually. If you do know what's going on there, you'll know it's atrocious. Either way, the social media has had no effect on what's going on here. It's very similar to what was happening in the 40s in Europe. So I would say that social media really has no impact on, I guess you could say, atrocities being committed, because it doesn't stop these sick people from getting in power and doing bizarrely sick things. One thing that is actually really interesting, and something that I may have misunderstood about this Chinese history class a little bit, is that the guy who's teaching it is actually showing us stuff that is banned in China. I actually found out today when I had watched a movie earlier on in the class, and then I went afterwards and I pulled it up, and I actually found out that that movie has been banned in China until 2017 by the state media because it didn't portray the Chinese in all too much of a positive light in their opinion. So this guy is actually kind of trying to show us that China isn't necessarily the best thing out there, and you can see that in a history book that was written by a guy and then approved by the Chinese government, that he said one of China's major flaws is that it's multicultural. China's very expansive, by the way. In case y'all didn't know, it's not because, like in most Western countries, there's a large amount of immigration going on that's bringing in different cultures. China is just multicultural due to its vast size. In the West, you'll find Muslims. In the North, you'll find, I guess you could say, Mongol-like people. Inner Mongolia isn't called Inner Mongolia for no reason. And up in the Manchurian area, you'll find Manchurians. Down here in the southeast, you'll find the Han Chinese, which are what you usually think of when you think of Chinese people. And we also have the Tibetans, which we can't ignore. All of these people are incredibly different, and the Chinese used to find a balance where they could preserve everyone's culture and also make sure that the Qing dynasty remained intact, because that's how long ago it was. They had the laws of heavenly ascension, which pretty much laid out different kinds of laws and customs for different parts of the Qing dynasty to make sure that they weren't stepping on anyone's cultural toes. Modern China doesn't really view it that way. They view it that culture is a backwards thing, and unless if it's serving the purpose of the state, it should be destroyed. And that's why things are going on. Well, that's why Tibet was crushed, and you can see throughout all of modern Chinese history after Tibet was annexed, has been getting crushed continuously, and now they've moved that up into Xinjiang, where most of the Muslim Uyghurs live, and now that's what's happening to them, although a lot worse than what they even did to the Tibetans. And social media has had absolutely no impact in turning that around. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well. Hopefully we don't get obliterated for saying that, because, you know, not to say this, but there are some people who work for YouTube supposedly that are connected over here. But, you know, anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a $20 super chat from 3Michael, who says, how would you compare the risks of NATO Article 5 versus the similar alliances that led to World War I? Obviously different, but it seems to rhyme a bit.
The NATO alliance is a little bit different than World War I, because while the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance were actually made to preserve the balance of power in Europe, NATO has no regards for balance. In fact, their entire aim and goal is to make sure to throw off the balance as best they can. And so that does change a lot of things in that perspective, because the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente, or I guess you could say, well, the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente, and their goals was to make sure that it was an even match in between both sides. NATO is trying to screw over Russia as best as possible. And back when Russia was the Soviet Union, that was also the goal of the Warsaw Pact, was to try and screw over NATO as best as they could, make sure the balance wasn't fair. So in that way, in the way of it being an alliance, trying to, I guess you could say, make sure that they can defend themselves against the Russians, it does rhyme in a little bit of a way, but at the same time, it doesn't, because they're not trying to balance the situation. We're trying to flip the table over and then beat them with a glass bottle. So with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well, because it is not at all like the Triple Alliance or the Entente. It's totally different. We've actually grown NATO to be so powerful that just the European section of NATO could beast on the Russians at this point. They don't even need the United States. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well. And thank you so much for the support. And a really good question. That was a great question, actually, and I really liked that one. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And moving on to our next one, we have a $15 super chat from David Malone, who says, can you please thank the 5th Battalion of the Canadian Armed Forces for all their work and take a question from the chat?
And yes, thank you to the 5th Battalion of the Canadian Armed Forces for everything that they've done. Let's pull them up real quick. The 5th Battalion Canadian. Let's see. 5th Battalion Canadian. We'll just put in 5th Battalion Canadian. There we go. Pretty neat little battalion emblem, I guess you could say. And it was disbanded in 1920. So I think you're talking about the 5th Battalion of the Canadian Expeditionary Force. It's kind of like the American Expeditionary Forces in the First World War. And I believe, if I'm correct, and let me make sure to read this over here so I can get it correct. They distinguished themselves at the battle. Yep, they did. They distinguished themselves at the Battle of Vimy Ridge, which we talked about a little while ago. And the Canadians don't get a lot of credit. Everyone always looks at them as a passive, polite country. Throughout most of their history, they've been able to curb stomp just about anything they've been put up against. In the Second World War, they did a really good job. In the First World War, they did an impressive job. They've done an impressive job throughout their history. Hell, they even beat the United States fairly well in the War of 1812, which is something we don't talk about a lot here in America, because I think we're actually jealous of the Canadians for being able to pull off that little stunt. But still, the Canadian Armed Forces, in my opinion, are an unsung hero of the Western world. Of course, they've never had the size to compare to your greater powers like France or Britain or the United States, but the forces that they do produce are some of the finest quality and also some of the bravest in terms of their fighters. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that praise was good enough of a thanks for him. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and they did ask for a live chat question. So that question is going to go to Packrat, who says, since we know that Russian artillery has committed friendly fire previously, do you think now at this point, with more of that going on, it may be intentional? It always has me question.
Artillery and the infantry never really interact with each other enough for it to be intentional for the most part. Now, of course, that's a little bit of an odd statement. There are exceptions. Of course, the infantry has to radio into artillery to tell them where to fire. That is one of the interactions they have, but they don't have enough, I guess you could say, person-to-person interactions, and they're not around each other enough on a modern battlefield for artillery units to have enough animosity against specific infantry to try and find them, target them, and kill them on their own side. So I think that this friendly fire is largely being caused just because of raw incompetence on the Russians' end, and especially in their artillery, and also seeing that only about 46% of their population has a high school diploma. Everyone else has a lesser education. It may be because they just don't understand what they're actually doing, which is just nuts. So with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does answer the question fairly well based off of what we're seeing right now. But once again, take it with a grain of salt because it may not be true. And I know that everyone's been looking forward to that statement for a long time. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $15 super chat from Nerber777, who says, I keep hearing Russia is number 2 military. Take out the nukes, and would it be in the top 10 still?
Oh, no. And Russia isn't even in the top 10 right now, even with nukes. Nukes don't really, I don't really rule nukes into the military equation because that's an Armageddon kind of situation. The military has no relevance in a situation like that, rather than trying to deliver the armaments, which, you know, that's really just a matter of pushing buttons and getting silo doors open. So in that regard, I would say that Russia is well below top 10. There's so many countries out there that could beat them. The United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Poland, China, South Korea, Japan, India, Pakistan, let's see, Turkey, most likely. Let's see, who else? Who else can we pick out? I believe the Italians would actually stand a pretty good chance. The Finns, the Swedes, the Canadians, the Mexicans. You know, a lot of people don't give credit to Mexico, but hell, their police forces get so much action in a day trying to deal with cartels that those are pretty crack frontline units if you put them out there. But yeah, I think there's a million countries out there that are far better off than the Russians in terms of their military prowess. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. Even if they have nukes, they're not in the top 10 in my opinion. And without nukes, they're certainly not even in the top 20. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support. And I hope we addressed that question fairly well.
All right, and up next, a big shout out to E3ECO for putting in a $10 super chat and simply saying coffee.
And thank you so much for the coffee. And we'll make sure to drink that coffee, huh? And so with that, thank you once again for the support. And thank you for helping the coffee fund. With that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from White Lightning 777, who says, does Ukraine have any long-range air-to-air missiles capable of shooting down bombers?
They do have air-to-air missiles like S-300s capable of shooting down the bombers. And real quick, let's go back to the S-300, and let's see what a longer-range S-300 could do, because I think we're looking at one of the shorter-range ones. So let's see here. Range, we're not looking for those in particular. We are looking for... Oh, man. Let me see if I can find it down here. Let's see here. Some of the longer range ones, like the S-300 VM, can fire out to around 400 kilometers. So that one could probably hit them. But the rest of them, if it's any other variation of the S-300, then it wouldn't be able to. It just wouldn't be possible. The cruise missiles would be fired at such a far range that it would never even get into firing distance of an S-300 unless it was an S-300 VM. And so with that, once again, take it with a grain of salt because we're just going off of numbers from Wikipedia, and I'm sure that someone out there who is chomping at the bits to try and prove us wrong on anything at this point will be, oh my God, they're so wrong, you know. And also if you see that, laugh at that, because that's kind of funny, you know, because we don't get everything right, and we've always made that clear, you know? I don't know about you, Matthew, but I've always said, you know, we don't get everything right, and we're just working off of our knowledge here, and then I go and explain it. And for some reason, some people take that as we act like the Oracle of Wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so anyways, with that, that's what we're getting from it right now, is that unless it was one of the most up-to-date and most advanced versions of the S-300, it probably wouldn't be able to hit the bombers. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for a pretty good one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Super Action General, who says, chat question, please.
And thank you so much, Super General, for the support, and we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. And so that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and the live chat question goes to Thomas Schweitzer, who says, keeping in mind that they often use the momentum of the plane to add the speed of the missiles, can the SAMs intercept Russian air-launched cruise missiles?
Yes, they can. NASAMS are some of the best systems worldwide. We spent trillions and trillions of dollars improving these systems. They could hit anything. They'll even hit those. No problem. No question. NASAMS, missile battery.
And, of course, getting past the voice, because for some reason I just felt it come over me. Yes, it could. The NASAMS can shoot down any cruise missiles coming in, regardless whether they're air-launched, ground-launched, or sea-launched, as far as we know. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the live chat question. That was actually a really good one, Matthew. How the hell did you find that one of such quality?
It was there, and it was just very good. It was very appealing. I had to put it in the spreadsheet.
Some say Matthew finds the highest quality live chat messages out there. YouTube, high ratings, great stuff. All in all, I got to give him a huge credit right there. And so with that, we're on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for a great live question.
All right, and come on, man. Up next, we have a $10 super chat from CA Lags, who says, do you think that the U.S. doctrine of using its Air Force to intercept drones and cruise missiles and using SAMs for point and BM defense more effective than Russia's dependence on longer-range SAMs?
I think that the United States policy of overwhelming air power is very efficient. Well, not really efficient in terms of the supply side of things, because it's very strenuous to support that many aircraft with that much aviation fuel at a constant rate, especially when most of it's being used. But hell, we do it, so why not? I think it's a great strategy for the United States. We are almost an unlimited nation in terms of our resources right now at the current moment in history, and so we can pull that kind of strategy off with thousands of aircraft. I believe we have over 2,000 combat aircraft, fighting aircraft of different kinds. And I think that's no bad strategy at all for the United States. On top of that, they're multi-role, so you can have these aircraft equipped to shoot down surface-to-air, well, not surface-to-air missile, cruise missiles, other kinds of ordnance being launched towards targets. And not only that, but we rely a decent amount on Patriot missile defense systems to fill in the gaps and the NASAMS that the Air Force can't fit in. So it's like a redundant shield behind the Air Force. So I think that's a fairly good strategy for America. Not a good strategy for other countries that are economically poor, like Russia and also China. They cannot field an Air Force the size of which we do, and so they need to start relying a lot on surface-to-air missile batteries to fill in the massive expanses that their Air Force will never possibly be able to fill in. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that was a fairly good answer. Also, by the way, if you throw in a super chat and you want something expounded on, we haven't said this in a while, but if you want something expounded on, or we didn't really answer the question the way you were wanting it to, just make sure to throw in an @EnforcerMatt in the live chat and say, I actually meant it this way, and we'll make sure to try and go back and answer it if we can. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Santiago Flores, who says, great job, Enforcer team. Pizza time. Cheers.
Pizza. And thank you so much for the support, Santiago Flores, and helping us to keep this thing running. And we will make sure to have some... We will make sure to have... Okay. We will make sure to have some pizza. As they say in the Orient. 手上好生活，欣赏我的冰淇淋。And so with that, thank you so much. Let's give him support. I had to pull that one out again, man, because everyone's saying ice cream in the live chat right now for some reason. But I thank you so much once again for the support, Santiago Flores. You've been around forever. You've helped this channel to keep on running, even right now through I don't know what the hell we're going to call this period in channel history, man, because we have fun names for other times, like the
Great Slump,
like the Strikes, the Great Schism. And we can't, I don't want to use great again. Maybe we ought to call this,
the bad slump.
The Dark Ages. Maybe we ought to call this the Dark Ages, considering that YouTube is messing with the subscriber numbers.
Could call it, Jingzhao, Bing Chiling.
Wait a minute, let me pull it back out again. 1 second, I gotta, because whenever I say this, I want to make sure to do it right, because it's just funny. 手上哈双了
And put that like sound effect in the background. Bing Chiling. Bing Chiling.
Oh man, John Cena. I mean, John Cena really made himself a joke after he did that. For some reason, it just came off poorly. And also, that was so weird. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one, though. And thank you so much once again for the support, Santiago Flores.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Michael Cabrera, who says, Enforcer, the cord that causes the artillery pieces to fire is called a lanyard. I was attached to a mechanized artillery battalion off 155-millimeter guns as a combat medic in northern Germany.
Dag nabbit, I thank you for the support, and I forgot the freaking name. I have a guy I know. I actually need to go get my Enforcer helmet back from him because he was doing something to it, and I haven't gotten it back for a while, but... he actually has a small mountain howitzer that he uses in reenacting, and he told me that thing was a lanyard a while ago, and you just reactivated that memory for me, but for this entire time, I had completely forgot what that thing is called, and I just called it a cord. So I thank you so much once again for the support, and also allowing me to remember that I actually knew that at the time and completely forgot about it, and also sharing that information with us here. Also, thank you for your service, because that is actually pretty neat. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And I saw Papa all say, Enforcer is getting super hot. Actually, I turned it on because it's actually getting a little bit cold in here. But with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for clarifying that and also giving us a little bit of information.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Richard Philpott, who says $10 is $7.
Well, I think
is that like the like torture thing? You know how like sometimes when you see in like movies they'll like torture somebody and they'll say, how many fingers am I holding up?
Oh,
and they'll be holding like 5 fingers and then they'll be like, no, it's 4.
No,
and then like beat them.
No, what he means, Matthew, by that is YouTube takes 30% of it.
Oh,
that's what he means.
It was that simple?
Yeah, I think that's what he means. Also, in case y'all didn't know, YouTube also takes out transaction fees as well. So if you're from the European Union, they take like a swath of...
They take out VAT taxes.
Yeah, they take out VAT taxes from that thing, which is a swath of it. So we can sit there and have like, say, like $100 in support from Europe and they will take like $40 of it or $45 of it, and it's just horrendous. And it also they never give us an itemized statement of how those deductions actually work. So we don't really know if they're doing that on European donations or if they're trying to do that on American ones as well. And it's getting a little bit infuriating lately. Anyways, with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. And a 10 is actually a 7. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Anthony, who says, Enforcer, there's an old video on YouTube from Russia of a road rage where a guy got beat up by cartoon characters. If you can show this video on screen,
that. Yeah.
I think the LSA would get a good laugh.
Thank you for the support, and I remember that. One second, let me pull it up. Russian road rage, Mickey Mouse. What is this Mickey Mouse crap? Here we go, I found it. Hey guys, I found it.
Is this sophomore story okay?
And now we gotta go through an Oreo commercial. Why in the world did that sound like the Grubhub Eats commercial? Anyways, here's the video. Let's watch.
Говорю, давай через неделю. Он говорит, а я работаю до субботы. Я говорю, ну давай воскресенье. Секунду подумал, говорит, не, я ж, говорит, воскресенье на выборы иду. Знаешь, как будто плакат увидел, что 14 сентября все идут на выборы. И сразу,
When you see the Pizza Planet truck and the van getting into some road rage, they've now come to a stop. And all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose as this man walks out.
Да не говори уже, глаза смыкаются. Ребят, поехали, а? Что там такое?
He's getting in a fight with the driver. He's trying to open up his door.
Ребят. Что там?
Oh. SpongeBob?
Wait, is that Wile E. Coyote?
Mickey?
Man, Wile E. Coyote's about to whoop ass.
They're beating him.
Wait a minute, that's Scrat.
Oh, his helmet came off.
Man, Mickey's eyeball just fell out.
Тёма, ты удачно проснулся, не башка отлетела. Ой, проснулся.
Man, he's reeling.
He got his head kicked in by Mickey Mouse.
You can't live that down.
Oh,
He just got torn up by Mickey Mouse and Scrat off of Ice Age.
Wait a minute. Wait, I know what Mickey was saying when he was beating the hell out of this man right here. Watch me, he's running around going, oh, here's what happens, you guys who don't listen to my cease and desist orders. Oh my god, that's horrendous. Anyways, that's the end of the video. Someone just said, give him a Kirby. Jesus, y'all people are barbaric. Come on, like, give me this. Come on. I bet you.
I see some folks saying it's staged. It could be staged. This is like almost too like wild to believe.
Yeah, kind of. It's pretty bizarre, not gonna lie. But it's Russia after all, and anything happens in Russia. That's one thing we do know. And so with that, I hope that addresses the comment fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support. And I hope y'all enjoyed watching that funny video of that guy getting beat by cartoon characters. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Oats Air, who says, did Enforcer Matt get to show the Enforcer the new Top Gun movie? I linked him in Discord, Slava LSA, and Slava Ukraine. And Oats Air, we actually have not had the chance to see it yet, but we want to.
There are so many movies I want to watch right now, actually, Oats Air. There's a million of them. I actually want to watch the All Quiet on the Western Front movie that came out. I want to watch a million of them, but I don't have the time. And I hate that because I'm always telling people that, and it always sounds like I'm just trying to have an excuse to not do this stuff. But I seriously, like today, I got up and I knocked out 2 finals, and then I went and what the hell else? Oh yeah, I made that video, which took up the rest of the time. And then by that point, I had enough time to eat supper and then go and get ready to start running the stream. And I had no time, and it's like that every day. But I promise you, at some point, I will get around to watching those movies. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Otair. I hate to say that, but we will eventually get around to watching them. And thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Chip Kerwan, who says, assume that a coup kills Putin. What factors do y'all consider in weighing likelihood or not of a more criminal militant faction arising and trying to escalate the war crimes.
It's low, because if a coup happens against Putin, we can assume that they're largely against everything he's doing for the most part, except for a few things. And so if they came to power, they would most likely be on a premise probably supported by the public, because they would see that public support is waning for Putin and they'd kill him, so that way they could be pretty opportunistic on catching on to the new wave of thought and ideas in Russia, and they would probably go, okay, everyone, we're ending the war, because that would put them in a lot of, I guess you could say, favor with the public off the bat, and hopefully their reign wouldn't be opposed by any other opportunists who would be seeing that they're weak and not really supported by the public. So the chances of a more militant leader coming into power is likely low. The only instances we ever see of more militant leaders coming into power is during peacetime. For example, Lenin to Stalin, well, actually, yeah, this is a pretty good example too. Chiang Kai-shek to Mao, because during that time, China was not having any external enemies any longer. It was only internal enemies in between the Chinese communists, the Red Chinese, and then the Kuomintang. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well, and also give a little bit of historical precedence. And thank you so much once again for the support. Also, another prominent guy in Germany came into power and was a militant during peacetime as well, which is a really good example of that. A third example of that. And so I hope that also adds a little bit to it. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Robert McIver, who's a longtime channel legend. He says, an enforcer, Andrew and Matt, keep keeping the news and grab a pizza.
And thank you so much for the support, Robert McIver. And we will make sure to keep keeping the news, and we will make sure to also grab a pizza too. Make sure to support that PP fund, and also do everything else as well that's become a joke on this channel. I cannot even remember most of them because there's been a million. But thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. You guys are actually helping us to keep this thing alive. I know I say that a lot. I know that probably means nothing at this point, but y'all really do. Like, if y'all didn't support us, we would have to get a job at, like, Krispy Kreme, and then we wouldn't be able to do this. And so thank you so much once again to all of y'all so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also, Robert, I would love to grab a New York pizza or New York style one. I hate we don't have anywhere around here like that because we only have Papa John's. But we will certainly grab a Supreme Pizza from Papa John's.
Chicago.
But anyways.
Chicago style pizza. I want a Chicago style pizza right there.
Nah, that's too thick.
No, I want to try that, man. Like, it's like a pie. It's like a lasagna, man. Like, that looks good. I would like to at least give it a try, you know, like just to see if it's good.
I want that thin pizza that you can fold and dip it in ranch.
Wait a minute. This is a Chicago pizza, you know, like a cake. There's the New York pizza, like a normal New York pizza. That's the one that's like nationwide. Philadelphia pizza? What the hell even is that? Is that like ground beef?
Ugh.
And then there's like Detroit. Dude, Detroit's the school pizzas. You know, like the big flat ones?
Oh, yeah, it is somewhat.
Yeah, that's the Detroit. I never even knew that. Did y'all know that there's different kinds of hot dogs too? Like, a hot dog chart. Right here, yeah. This is the one I'm talking about. The Carolina, Seattle, Sonora, the Dodger dog, the Doyer dog. There's a million different hot dogs and different ways you can have them. And honestly, that would be a pretty cool bucket list to have food-wise, is to try out all of the different hot dogs across the United States. That would be pretty neat. And also, there's a lot of appetizing options on here. Like, for honestly, one of the ones I'm looking at here, and you can hardly see them, I hate that, is the potato dog. And also the Korean hot dog, because that kind of looks like a corn dog. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And I see some folks are shocked. They said that I wanted to dip pizza in ranch. If you haven't tried it, it's really good. I like it on that little thin pizza. I love it. It's really good, especially on the crust. Like, I usually wouldn't eat the crust, but with the ranch, I'll eat it.
But did y'all?
But that's just me.
But did y'all know that like, y'all know those really thin crust pizzas that are kind of like a cracker? I love those. Like, it's refreshing. You know, you go from like the doughy pizzas to something that's almost like a big giant cracker, and it's got like pepperoni and all that stuff on top of it. I really like those too, but I don't like them with ranch. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat once again from Chip Kerwan, who says, what about Arab Spring in Cairo, quickly then streaming to the Muammar Gaddafi stomp that became an overnight smash pop hit around the world, riding on the wings of social media.
Wait a minute, read that again? You were laughing so much I couldn't get it.
I was choking. I was choking for a second. I was trying to see if I could hold it back. Chip said, "What about the Arab Spring in Cairo?" Quickly, then streaming to the Muammar Gaddafi stomp. I don't know what that means. Gaddafi stomp, was that like a dance or something? But he said it became an overnight smash pop hit around the world, riding on the wings of social media. I think he actually does mean like a dance, like it's called the Gaddafi stomp.
I think I know what he means by that. I think it's a joke about how Gaddafi kind of got ended. But anyways, the Arab Spring, that didn't really travel around the world in the way that we were talking about with China, like, well, anywhere, because, we can't really say that China's bad because, YouTube likes to like them for one reason or another, mostly for economic reasons. But anyways, Arab Spring didn't really pass around like, look at the atrocities going on over there. Arab Spring kind of happened like, like, oh, hey, like the Arab world is like, well, at least this was their idea, not mine. This is what pretty much paraphrased they were thinking, oh, hey, the whole Arab world like kind of sucks. Let's just start overthrowing governments and killing people and going back to the quote-unquote glory days. That's really what that was spreading on social media. It didn't really spread out like, look at the atrocities that are going on, because the Syrians still use barrel bombs on their people and no one cares. They just continue to commit atrocities. The only thing that social media helped with was spreading the fervor of, I guess you could say, the Arab Spring revolutions across the entirety of North Africa and also the Middle East, instead of just containing it to Egypt or Syria. And so with that, I hope that addresses the comment fairly well. Also, the Arab Spring is a very interesting phenomenon that occurred across the entirety of pretty much the Islamic or Muslim world, whichever you'd like to call it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support, Chip.
Oh, goodness. Chewbacca's secret love child. I did not know that about what happened to Gaddafi before he died. That is certainly interesting.
Yeah, he didn't go out a good way.
I've never heard that term used for that either. Buggered.
Oh, no, don't say it. No,
Was that bad?
Oh, it's bad. It's bad in Britain, man. That's pretty bad.
I've heard him say that all the time. I didn't know that's what that meant.
Oh, well, bugger means one thing. That one with the past tense on it means a lot different. Like, it's a weird thing.
Oh, my.
Yeah, it's bad. Like, that's bad. Repent. Anyways,
moving on to our next one. Big shout out to James W. for putting in a $10 donation, but without a comment. Thank you, James, very much for that support, and we do appreciate that very much. Up next, we have a $7 super chat from Shane Ziggy, who's been watching, but not on the live for quite some time. He says, Spam Drew.
Spam Drew? What does that mean?
He said you'd know what that meant. Spam Drew.
No, I don't know what that means. But I thank you so much for the support. It helps us to keep this channel running. But if you can add some context to that, I would like to know. Because I don't know what that means. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, Santiago says, do we have any idea who will benefit for tomorrow's fundraiser?
At the moment, not right now. We always try and figure it out on the day of, because I always want to make sure the fundraiser correlates to the news we're covering the best we can, so that way the news advocates for support to that fundraiser. So right now we don't know. I'll just have to wait until tomorrow to see what kind of news is coming up. Because if it's mostly atrocities against civilians, then we usually do something that helps out civilians. If it's something related to the military, we do something to help out the military, and so on. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, BME, I'll take your word for it. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from White Lightning 777, who says, do you think Putin has lurkers watching the stream or similar ones like Starsky, Denny's, etc.? And I would say certainly yes, but not directed by Putin personally.
I would say indirectly. I would say yeah, because that seems to be reasonable, considering that the Ukrainians are watching a whole load of Russian media stuff to look into what's going on over there the best they can. So I would assume yeah, but it's it's kind of like a debate to the severity of it. Is it so bad that saying things on this channel can lead to people getting killed? I think yeah, but I don't think it's so much so that when I say something, it's going straight up to Sergei Shoigu in the Ministry of Defense. I don't think it's going that far. I think it's probably just within the FSB or something similar up to the level of a captain or a colonel, which is somewhat lower level, maybe intermediate. But it's not going all the way up to the very top for each and every one of us who do this on YouTube, because there's a lot of us who do it. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well. But I would say on Starsky, I would say that there was probably a lot more chance and a lot more risk for him to be watched by those kind of people, considering he is an officer in the Ukrainian military, and also he's the son of a pretty prominent Ukrainian officer as well. I feel like that would probably be more prevalent in his case, maybe a little bit in mine. And so with that, we're on to the next one. I hope that does answer the question fairly well.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Analytics Group, who says in 2018, the U.S. Army had a fight with the Wagner. It was the Battle of Kasham. Wagner attacked and U.S. fought back with HIMARS, B-52s, F-22s, 100 plus Ruski dead.
Let's see, the Battle of Kasham. Here we go. I'll show you all this. This is one of the joys of the Syrian war, because there was only 40 American troops. Only 40 of them. Only 40. Look at the Wagner group. And we got them. And no U.S. casualties. And only one SDF fighter was wounded. Oh, man. That's the Wagner group for you. They get all the credit in the world for being this crack group of fighters. They can't even take on 40 American troops. Can't. It's impossible. They suck. In American, well, then again, that makes it sound like American troops are some kind of like easy piecemeal thing to deal with. American troops are some of the best in the world. But still, they can't even do anything to them. They end up just getting obliterated, like you can see right there. And honestly, I like it. I don't know about y'all, but I get a good laugh out of seeing when the U.S. takes no casualties whatsoever, and we end up just obliterating the enemy force that goes up against us. And we don't even know how many there were. Like, we have no idea how many Syrian forces there were involved in this battle, but we know we got them, and we know we won. As you can see right here, it was an American and Syrian Democratic Forces victory, like it should have been. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Prajwal Korala, who says, please update your Chrome. Thank you for the stream.
And thank you so much for the support. I would update my Chrome, but I honestly have like this thing where I'm like, oh crap, if I update my Chrome, what's going to happen to it? Is something going to change? Because when I update my OBS, it resets everything on it, and I have to go back and re-change all of it back to the way it was. And so that's why every once in a while on a stream, like I'll click over from the intro card to the actual stream, and then I'll throw y'all on my second monitor where y'all looking at my dashboard instead of looking at the actual stream. But I will see about doing that. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Jennifer Clark, who says, long-time listener, but first-time donor. What's your pre-stream playlist?
And thank you so much for the support, and also cool to hear that you've donated and supported to us for the first time, and thank you so much for that. I don't have a pre-stream playlist because I'm working.
It's Totoro.
Wait a minute, man. Let's just recreate how we exactly hop into call. I'll start it off. Oh, hello, Dave.
Messed up. Oh, Totoro.
And then we just do that. We do that for like 5 minutes straight, and that's how we get hyped up for the stream. So if you ever wondered, that's what we do. It's
insanity, but it works.
It is straight up insanity, but that's really just me getting hyped up to talk to thousands of people for 3 hours straight. Because it actually is a little bit stressful to just quietly sit here and do nothing up till that point. It's kind of a little anxiety inducing in a way. So I always try and make sure to just like psych myself up so that way I don't really think about it too much. But that's what we do. I don't really have a pre-stream playlist. If there was one, it's going to be the most bizarre thing ever. It's a mixture of Ukrainian songs. It's a mixture of songs from like the 50s and 60s. Like one of the new ones I added is Everybody Loves Somebody, sometimes by Dean Martin, because it's a sappy song, but I just really like how the instrumentals and the vocals mix together. It's a really nice song that way. But it's mostly like songs like that, and then some older military marching songs. It's just a hodgepodge of everything. And then there's some rock in it, like a very small amount, but there is some. So that's kind of like the mix that I got, but I don't really listen to it a lot because when I'm working on the stream, I'm trying to listen to videos a little bit, and I'm trying to figure out how all the news will work together, and then music just distracts me from that. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope that first super chat was worth it for what we did on stream. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Y'all remember in the movie Ratatouille when the guy that was like the chef and the rat was pulling his hair to make the food? They finally like exposed that the rat was the one actually doing it, and everybody got up and left. I thought maybe for a minute after they heard the insanity, they might get up and leave, the viewers.
Nah, they didn't. They're still here. Also, a lot of y'all are talking about the animal Totoro from Studio Ghibli. I'm actually, like, I don't know about you, man. I don't know if you think about that animal, but I think of the Toto toilets. Like, that's my Totoro thing. You know, like, I don't know.
I don't know what to think about Totoro, but Studio Ghibli makes a pretty strange film, I gotta say.
But they're good. I mean, like, you know, I'm not really into
They're good.
I'm not really into anime or anything, but those are good anime films. You know, like, you can respect them even if you're not really an anime person.
True, that's true.
And so with that, we on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat from Judo 2001, who comes in trolling very hard. He says Andrew shouldn't make fun of Matt with his pee-pee fun, and when he's drinking nipple-flavored Gatorade. From the Commandant, pick a question from the chat.
And I thank you for the support. You actually got both of us there. I was getting a laugh on Matthew, and then you got me right back. So with that, thank you once again for the support, and let's get that live chat.
And the live chat question goes to Happy Dragon. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Enforcer, is it possible that the Ukrainians let the Ruskies gain land to be closer and easier to annihilate?
Maybe. I mean, can you reread that one again, actually?
Enforcer, is it possible that the Ukrainians let the Ruskies gain land to be closer and easier to annihilate?
Maybe so, or they may actually be retreating from these areas because they're just getting overrun, and then it's more advantageous anyways because it allows for the Ukrainians to fire on them in a larger area. So that actually may be the case in some instances. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does answer the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a super chat from Raphael Harris.
Why are
who
you
puts in
breathing
a
so much in your
$5
microphone? You sound like Donald Trump over there. You're like...
Oh, you can hear that?
yeah, I can hear every single time you inhale through your nose.
Oh,
like it's making
yeah.
a
I had to go
noise.
get a Jolly Rancher because I'm getting the jitters, like my blood sugar's off for some reason, so I had to go get one. So that's why I'm breathing so hard. But anyways, the super chat goes to Raphael Harris, who puts in a $5 donation. Enforcer, since the first week of the war, I've enjoyed your consistency, and it mirrors Zelensky's efforts to connect daily and support morale. Retake Sea of Azov.
Well, I thank you so much for the support. It really means a lot to me. It helps me to keep running the show. And now I'm getting lightheaded from doing that. I spend billions and billions of dollars making sure I can inhale air through my nose because I actually had to have it reconstructed after a large amount of cocaine. But thank you so much once again. And,
yeah, I'm starting to lose it for some reason. Anyways, I thank you so much for the support, and I thank you for enjoying that as well. And that's kind of been the point of running these streams almost continuously, although I have failed on a couple of days. 3 total days at this point of not running a stream for one reason or another. That's not a Monday. But that was largely my commitment at the beginning of the war, was that if Ukrainian soldiers can bear the rigors of the front line every day, and if the president of Ukraine can always make sure to be at the helm of the country every single day, then I ought to also be running the stream every single day as well, just to have the same level of commitment since I'm also supporting Ukraine. And so that was actually the goal, and I'm glad that you see it that way, and I thank you so much for supporting us, so that way we can keep this thing running like that. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope we addressed the question fairly well.
And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat once more from Chip Kerwan, who says, where is Ukraine going to open up a rumored fourth front? I'm sure the Russians would love to know the answer to that question.
Yes, they would, and that's the FSB agent in-house asking us where we think it'll be. It will be to Melitopol, if anything. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. Actually, they're going for Belgrade. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that answers the question fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Bilbo Jenkins, who says, if we never find life there, I think we should declare Jupiter an enemy planet.
And I thank you for the support. I don't know why you have a thing against Jupiter, but yeah, why not? Yeah, Jupiter's sick. The evil Jupiter. Sick, stupid. Anyways, thank you so much for the support. We will make Jupiter an enemy of the state. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again. That's the bizarrest thing I've ever said on stream.
LOL.
LOLs. LMAO. LMFAO. LOL.
Speaking text language.
ROF.
But anyways. Wow. But anyways, up next we have a $5 super chat from Philip Fixes, who says, keep pumping out those browser videos. You could get a topic every night and easily throw together a 5 to 10 minute video the next day. Slava LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, and I thought that would be pretty cool. However, I do want to make some improvements. I want my face on camera probably in the future, probably after the Archer Rehigh podcast, but because by then the set infrastructure should kind of be here. So yeah, I think I will do that. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that addresses the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Indy Andy 4C, who says, check out movie clips. What about Major Kong?
And I thank you for the support. I don't know about Major Kong, but I will try and check out movie clips. I cannot check them out on stream, though, due to copyright reasons, but maybe I'll check them out after stream. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, Robert McIver puts in a $5 donation again and calls out his favorite pizza place. He says, Santarpio's Pizza, Boston, Mass.
Hey, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And Santarpio's Pizza, Massachusetts. Let me see if I can remember where it was. I think I'm close. I gotta be close. How close am I? Let's see, Santarpio's... I was right there! I was just north of it. If I moved south, I would have been right there. Man! Anyways, I got it again. Didn't get it off the bat, but I did pull it up. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And you are getting free advertisement to Santarpio's Pizza. And so, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well, and the food looks bussin'. With that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $4 super chat for goodness sake. We also have a $2 donation from Dupper Bob and a $1 donation from Mark Andrew Brunette. So thank you very much to all three of you for the support, and we do appreciate it very much. And also, I feel very paranoid now about breathing because of what the enforcer said. So I'm considering just not breathing. All right, but thank you seriously though. Thank you all three for the support.
Don't breathe.
And also,
pass out. Be a man.
yes. All right, and up next we have a $20 super chat once more from Chip Kerr1, who says PBS special Putin Road to War explains. We'll see. I see the word of a very contentious politician, so that scares me.
I will read it to make sure that we avoid it. So, PBS special, Putin Road to War, explains Putin blamed such and such for inciting Maidan revolution. Putin also saw USA as having incited Cairo and Gaddafi coup. The story Putin had obsessive nightmares he'd get stopped like Gaddafi. And I thank you so much for the support. I think that's largely untrue, because one thing about the coups in Egypt and Libya is that they weren't really inspired by anything externally. In fact, it was something that the West didn't want at all. The Arab Spring was something we certainly didn't want to happen. We actually had some pretty good economic dealings with, I guess you could say, the Middle East at that time, considering that the entire region became destabilized. It became a massive issue for the United States, considering a lot of the world's oil comes out of there, and in turn, a lot of the oil we import comes from there as well. So we weren't really a big fan of that, so I don't know why we would construct something that would be, would damage our own country. And also, no one really brought forth the Maidan Revolution. It just kind of happened as well about 2 years after the beginning of the Arab Spring, mostly because people in Ukraine were just tired of the crummy living they had being a somewhat pro-Russian country, and I guess you could say the prospects looked a lot better in the European Union at the time than they did with Russia. And they still do. They, in fact, look way better now than they did even back then. And so I believe that Putin's just insane as usual. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And I hope you do understand, Chip, that we don't really address people like that, because that one in particular is one of the very contentious ones, and considering I cannot do a voice for them to make it a joke, it would just go badly. So with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address it, and we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $2 super chat from Mr. Diggs, who says, "Don't stop the legendary rabbit holes. I miss the spam talk."
Hey, Mr. Diggs! Why in the world does that sound like a rapper or like something? Oh, yeah, Mr. Diggs. But I thank you so much for the support, Mr. Diggs. And also, I will make sure.
Have you? Oh, also, by the way, have you seen the UK rappers Pete and Boss?
I don't think I have. What song did they sing though? I'm sure it's very.
They're like a 50-year-old men that rap. It's really sort of strange.
Well, wait a minute. I think you probably heard about this one. I'm just an island boy. I'm just an island.
No, I hadn't heard about that.
Oh man,
definitely hadn't heard about that.
Wait a minute, hang on. I know you will know him when you see him.
What the hell?
You know the little space shrimp or whatever. You know, in the what the hell?
I have never seen these two goons.
Let's see. Space Martian brine stuff. Brine shrimp. Yeah. Let me see if I can find this. Dang it, damn it. Sea monkeys. That's what I'm talking about. Sea monkeys. Hang on. We gotta find the advertising picture. Come on, dang it. Show it to me. You gotta find the good picture. Sea monkeys, look at their heads. Oh my god. Oh lord, I get a crack out of these guys. They're stupid as hell too.
They look like clowns. I've never seen them before, but just like straight up clowns.
Oh, they are. I mean, like, if you ever look into them, they really are. And they think they're good rappers. And if you ever listen to their music, oh, I'm not even into rap, and that's terrible rap. But anyways, with that, we're moving on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and up next, Chip Kerwan puts in another $5 super chat, and thank you, Chip, for the support. He puts away all of our fears. He says, I'm not in your house, FSB. I'm your PBS link to expert explanations.
And also, thank you so much once again for the support, Chip Kerwan. And I'm not in your house, FSB. I'm your PBS link to expert explanations. Well, thank you so much for the support. And I think we will try and look into that a little bit more if we can. But of course, time is pressed behind the scenes, and it's very hard to get around to watching long documentaries or movies. But I will try and take a look into it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support. Also, Matthew, I'm seeing that a lot of people almost blew up over the Island Boy thing. They're like, no, for the love of God, no! But anyways,
I can only imagine like the stupid stuff they say just by looking at them. I can only imagine.
Yeah, man, they're dumb. I mean, they're so dumb that they went on the Logan Paul show and they made themselves look like idiots. Like, that's how bad it is.
Yeah, they might have made a lot of money, I'm sure, because if they've gained fame, they probably got some. But that doesn't help why they broke.
They went on to the Logan Paul show, and they were already so bad off at that point. One of them said, maybe you should start selling your jewelry, like your chains. Maybe you can get by a little bit like that and not go broke. And they walked out because they were so insulted by that, but still, you know, they're still flopping. But anyways, so that to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $2 super chat from Maui Johnny, who says, Sun Yat-sen lived Maui grandson, lives here. Aloha.
And also, thank you so much for the support. And aloha. I think Matthew said aloha. Which...
Said aloha.
Oh. Well, anyways, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And that is pretty cool to hear once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Anthony, who says, coffee for you, Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support, Anthony. And also, coffee for you. Ding, ding, ding. Triple coffee. And so with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support.
All right. And that was it for our super chat. So we are now moving into our live chat questions. And up first, we have our Morse code decoders of the stream, BME, CFA, WFTU, and Mark Hodges. They say the Morse code says the only thing the Russians are bombing is their economy.
You're correct. They are bombing the economy, and they're doing it pretty well. They're doing a great job at it, and I hope they keep it up because the Russians will never recover at this rate. And so with that, thank you so much once again to all of y'all for deciphering the Morse code message. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next question goes to Justin Norse, who says Belarus said it will not enter the war, but Lukashenko in the past had ordered troops to deploy with Russian forces. How can we tell the difference, and could they be wearing each other's uniform?
We can't really tell the difference. They may be wearing each other's uniforms. In fact, Belarusians may be sent into the Russian army to serve as volunteers forcefully. on voluntold. But at the same time, we know that Belarus won't join because they are incredibly fragile. Not to go through the entire story, but it seems as if the social situation in Belarus is that if they did go to war, the military would immediately go into a coup, the public would be completely against it, and they would overthrow Lukashenko. That seems to be the case with what's going on right now, and that's why they will never join the war. That's why we've seen for 9 months, every single month, everyone's saying that Belarus will join the war, and then they don't. So if you see anyone saying that Belarus is about to join the war, call them out. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Duncan VR, who says, are they using Tupolev Tu-95 because they've run out of new aircraft? ?
No, actually, that's just usually what they use. Like, if we look at the Russian Air Force, that was just like their go-to bomber. It's kind of weird, but I'll show you. Scroll down to the bombers. The bombers. All right, so here's what we got. We got Tu-160s. We got IL-80s. Boy, that thing's ugly. It looks like an A330 that has the wings of a 707. That's just hideous. That's not even a bomber. That's actually an in-air fuel tanker. Well, where the hell's the rest of the bomber? What? What, did they not include the bomber forces here? They don't? Okay, well, hang on. Russian bomber forces. Does no one have a list of this? What the hell, are you kidding me? Anyways, let me go back. Okay, here we have it right here. Apparently it won't show you on the Wikipedia page, but it will show you here. So they have the MiG-31K, which is kind of an interceptor, but at the same time a bomber. The Tu-22 M3 backfire. Funny NATO designation. I don't know why they called it that. Probably, in my opinion, the most interesting looking of their bombers. It is literally just a modified Tu-22 like y'all saw earlier, but they actually made some practical design changes to it that made it somewhat sensible. It's still very dangerous to fly, but you can see the rear of it right there. Then they have the Tu-95, and then they have the Tu-160. They don't use them because they've run out of everything else. They use them because the Russians are so poor and the Soviets are so poor that they just made them and then they stuck with them. Usually because it was so expensive to maintain them that they didn't really have the money to go and develop or make a large amount of any other kind of bomber. So with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have one more super chat, actually. This one is from Chip Kerwan, who puts in a $5 donation once again. He says, rabbit hole request, show the volcano, please. And are there Sino statues bathed in that purple-red volcanic glow?
And thank you so much once again for the support, Chip Kerwan. And I don't think we can show the volcano because we don't know which volcano that is. And there's a lot of them out there. I think there's thousands of volcanoes just in the Pacific. And so with that, I thank you for the support, but I don't think we can take a look at the volcano because I don't know which one it would be. But if you're talking about the statues of Sun Yat-sen, I think we could try and show those. Sun Yat-sen statue. Do they have statues of them in China too? Oh no, that's in Toronto. Huh. Also, I think this is one of the ones in Hawaii. Yeah, that's one of the ones in Hawaii. So there it is right there, but it's not in the purple-red volcanic glow. It looks kind of patinaed and also moss covered. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And I thank you once again for the support. And with that, on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have another super chat. This time from Justin, who puts in a $7 donation. He says, late to the party again, so feel free to take a live chat question instead if it was already addressed. The Sam Elliott video was hilarious. Please make more. Or have you considered a Mike Tyson one?
Listen here, I would never do Mike Tyson because every time I do Mike Tyson, everyone wants to tell me I sound like I'm on the short bus. You don't know what kind of pain it is. If I bust your kid's balls with a hammer, then you might understand what kind of pain I'm in when people say they don't like my voice impersonations.
But yeah, I will probably do one of them. All kidding aside, I will probably do more Sam Elliott ones, and I probably will also do a Mike Tyson one, but I got to figure out how to make them YouTube shorts, because if I cannot make them YouTube shorts, then they will die, like the last one did. And even if I make them YouTube shorts, they might still die, and, you know, because we're kind of shadow banned. Like, looking at our subscriber count right now, we have 107,451 subscribers, which means that we've ended up today 7 subscribers above where we started. Whoop, whoop. So anyways, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And considering we are starting to go really overtime here, Enforcer, would you like to have the last question of the night?
Yes, I would. And so, who is the lucky last person who asked the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be Eric Kress, who says, how easy would it be for Russia to load a nuke on their bombers without Western powers detecting it until too late?
Very easy. With that, no, I'm just kidding. It will be fairly easy to load them on, because considering that they kind of use the same delivery systems as conventional cruise missiles and conventional weaponry, it would be very hard to tell if they're being loaded on or not until they were actually launched and then used. In some instances, and others, it would actually be pretty easy to tell. And also, one thing that may tip us off is spies inside of Russia seeing that the missiles are being loaded on, or there's equipment being brought in that shows that nuclear weapons are being brought to the airfield, which may give us a great indication that anything being used from that area may be a nuclear weapon, potentially. And so, in some regards, no, it will be very hard for to pick that kind of stuff up. And if we have some pretty good spies on the ground, then we might be able to tell if nuclear weapons may be used from these airfields. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an incredibly fun time running the stream tonight, telling all of y'all the news, and also having some jokes and kidding around with y'all. If y'all enjoyed this news, please make sure to subscribe, as we run it every single day of the week, except for Mondays. You cannot count on the stream on Mondays, but every other day of the week you can at the exact same time at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So thank you all so much once again for watching, and I will see y'all tomorrow on Sunday for the Sunday night fundraiser at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Hope to see you all there. Have a great night. Take care. Stay safe. Good luck. And Slava Ukraini.
Yes. The Lviv Street Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького